Kia ora, colleagues, staff, those who are with us today in the chamber. A special welcome to those representatives from Te Runanga, lovely to have you with us, and also those who are following our proceedings online. As is customary, may I invite our Kaumatua Tame Pokaia to open our meeting with karakia, please.
Tēnā koe te koro matua, ngā me mō te kauni he rā, e tū ono, e hara mai te whakarongo ngā kaupapa o te wākānu i te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. E te atua kaharawa, awhina mātau i rungu i te tika me te pono ke kore e kōtiti i roto i tēnei ao huri huri. Kia pua wai i roto i ngā taonga nāu i hō mai ki a mātau, hei harahi tō mātau wai i rungu i tēnei whenua. Ko koe tō mātau piringa, ko koe tō mātau tokatū moana, anei mātua whakawhetai ki a koe i rungi te ingoa, tō mātua kai whakaora, mo ake ake.
Amen.
Kia ora, Tame, and thank you as always for the beautiful and very inclusive way in which you open our meetings. Colleagues, while we have been trialling the bringing forward of PX, given that today's PX meeting is likely to be a very brief one, it is my expectation that we will simply move into PX at the end of the open agenda in case any of you think I've forgotten about it. But of course, I'm not meaning to predict how long this meeting will take. We will take as long as we need to. Could I move now to apologies? I have just received an apology from Councillor Maria Huata for lateness, although she is only a minute or two away. Do we have any further apologies? There being none, I'll move that that apology be accepted. I have a seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We move on to the confirmation of the agenda, which has been circulated and available both online and to members on Diligent. Would somebody like to move the confirmation of the agenda, please? Thank you, Councillor Strange. A seconder, Councillor Pike. Thank you very much. All in favour, please say aye. Against, no. That is carried. Councillor Moran has just arrived. Move on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest relevant to today's agenda? Would anyone wish? Councillor O'Leary.
Yes, although I'm not conflicted, I am going to step away, so I am declaring interest on items, both the alcohol items, which are, items 7 and item 14 on the agenda, because I am now a member of the District Licensing Committee.
Correct. Thank you very much for noting that. And in fact, in case you think that there is a strange numerical system on the updated run sheet, it is precisely to ensure that those two items can be dealt with consecutively that change has been made. Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Any further declarations of interest? We will move now then into public forum. Do we have any speakers for our public forum this morning? There are none. So we move on now to the confirmation of the council meeting minutes from our meeting just prior to Christmas held on the 11th of December. I will move that those minutes be adopted. I have a seconder from Deputy Mayor Taylor. I don't think we have any debate on that, do we? Are there any questions or debating points? There being none, I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? No, that is carried. So, colleagues, we move now into the Chair's report, and as is typical, this has been distributed in advance and will be debated shortly after there's been an opportunity for questions. Now, just as a point of procedure, given the decision that we need to make today about our Mangai Maori arrangements, I propose to allow 3 minutes for debate and then to put 2 motions. The first of which will be the standard motion to receive the Chair's report. The second will be the motion relating to our Mangai Maori model. I will move both motions. I understand that the Deputy Mayor will second the motion to receive the Chair's report and that Councillor Corrales will second the motion to continue with our Mangai Maori appointments. Just before we go into debate, are there any questions? There being none, as I've indicated, we will cover both motions now in the one debate, so please be prepared to speak on all topics that you consider relevant, and then we will vote on the 2 motions separately at the conclusion of the debate. Councillor Liu.
On item 6, regarding to Mangai Mori, my question is around value and duplication. My question is, what problem specifically is this model solving that cannot be solved through elected councillors, including our 2 Mori ward councillors, and no more engagement?
Do we bring our staff members forward for that, or we should do so? Yeah. Who would we bring forward? Janet? Probably best if I ask Janet to reply to that question. Did you hear the question, Janet?
Yes, I did. I might get Mish to add further to it, but the main difference is the Māori ward councillors are elected members that have influence and input across the council table for all of Hamilton. With our Māngai Māori, they come with specific professional expertise relevant to a specific council committee, and they come with the responsibility and mandate of tangata whenua through Waikato Tainui, or Mā Tāwaka through Te Runanga or Kirikiriroa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. No further questions? We will now move into debate. Our year is off to a busy start, and I thank elected members and staff for your support at various events and participation in our first meetings, workshops and drop-in sessions. For some in our country, especially in the Bay of Plenty and further down the East Coast, this year has begun in devastating and tragic circumstances. I'm sure we all offer our aroha and condolences to the families of those who recently lost their lives in Mount Maunganui and Welcome Bay. I acknowledge the efforts of first responders, rescue teams, civil defence and emergency management staff, including those from our region who went to assist in storm-affected areas. Meanwhile, here in Hamilton, there was much excitement surrounding the long-awaited opening of our magnificent BNZ Theatre. It is an outstanding achievement for which thanks are due to so many who made it possible, especially the dedicated Foster's team and many generous donors. Today we must decide whether to continue with the Māngai Māori representation arrangements that have been in place since 2018. We have statutory obligations regarding Māori participation and decision-making outlined in the Local Government Act 2001 and other legislation. In my role as Mayor, I engage frequently and respectfully with mana whenua representatives at numerous events, hui and significant civic occasions. I appreciate the contributions, guidance and perspectives they offer, and I'm eager to maintain and strengthen these relationships for our mutual benefit, while acknowledging that we may not always agree. We are strengthened by healthy debate, which highlights different views and perspectives on important issues. In moving the motion to retain our Māngai Māori model, I acknowledge that there are sincerely held and well-considered views on both sides of this matter. I respect and understand those perspectives. Governance structures are important, and it's entirely appropriate that we test them regularly and carefully. In my judgment, retaining this model represents an endorsement of what has worked well for this council in recent years. This is not a new direction, it is the status quo. Over the past 3 terms, the model has operated constructively and professionally alongside elected members, and we have been well served by very capable appointees who have contributed meaningfully to our deliberations. It's important to be clear about what this model does. The Māngai Māori model complements elected representation. It does not replace it. Elected members remain fully accountable decision makers. Nothing in this structure changes that fundamental democratic principle. Māngai participate and contribute within 3 of our committees, bringing expertise and insight, but the authority to decide remains with those of us who have been elected by our community. Māngai do not participate in these full council meetings. For me, this is fundamentally a capability decision. The question before us is whether specialist insight strengthens our committee deliberations, and in my view, it does. Strong governance is built on informed debate, diverse perspectives, and access to the right expertise at the right time. I'm going to have to skip to the end. There's quite a lot that I would have liked to have covered. But I just want to point out that our partnerships with Waikato Tainui and Te Runanga or Kirikiriroa are not symbolic, they are strategic. Their cultural contribution is well understood, but their economic contribution is also significant and growing, and reflects the huge importance to our region of the Māori economy. Those relationships matter and are working to our advantage. Councillor Corrales, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor McIndoe. I will be supporting the motion in relation to your report, particularly around the acknowledgement of recent weather-related events and the tragedies that families and our communities have suffered and who will continue to be affected by for a long time. In terms of the motion in relation to Māngai Māori, I not only am seconding this motion, but I will be supporting the Māngai Māori model. These are important roles that support the strengthening of our partnerships with all our Māori stakeholders, and in particular two key ones being Waikato Tainui and Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa. I emphasise that these are skills-based appointments, not token voices at the table, and the expectation that the same accountability that applies to us as elected members also applies to these positions. These positions do help us discharge our statutory and treaty obligations, but the continuation of these roles send a deeper message than that, because obviously this is our choice. As it is a choice, this sends a message that the relationship extends beyond compliance with statute and box ticking, and we are moving more closely towards a relationship grounded in a genuine exchange of ideas and reciprocity. Looking at the numbers, no one can reasonably feel threatened by any thought of a Māori-only agenda at any committee of the whole. In fact, the message of the Māngai Māori model usefully opens the door to considerations of partnerships with all our community stakeholders and what form that might take looking forward as we all contribute to the well-being and prosperity of the city in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Corrales. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be supporting both your report and the motion to retain Māngai Māori, and I want to make a few comments in terms of Māngai Māori. It was first established by Andrew King's council a number of terms back. And in my experience, our Māngai have brought huge value to our decision making. In chairing the Strategic Growth Committee last year, I found Māngai Jadine Kanna's contributions extremely valuable. She brought really good insights. Her background was working for the UN. She had brought amazing expertise and professional skills. She was an accountant as well. Those kinds of skills are what we will be expecting again this time around. And also Māngai Oli as well, who's here in the room, has also brought great wisdom and expertise and experience as well. So this is not dissimilar to, for example, audit and risk, where in the past we have appointed external chair and deputy chair in order to have professional skills at the table. But in this case, we also are ensuring that Waikato Tainui and Te Runanga have a direct voice at the table. So I think it's incredibly important that we continue to have the Māngai representation model. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Pike, please.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. As per my debate in the Growth Committee earlier this week, I thank you for noting the recent tragedies that have happened around the Motu following the weather events in January. And my heart goes out to all the families and friends who have lost loved ones, and I will continue to support strengthening our resilience and capabilities in the emergency management field within the Council. In terms of the Māngai motion, I want to start by acknowledging those in the chamber today. Thank you, Andrea, on behalf of the Runanga, and I want to thank you for your presence today, and to Waikato Tainui for their feedback into this item, and also to our previous Māngai, Jadine and Oli. Kia ora. Over the last term, I've had the privilege of working alongside our Māngai Māori and have personally seen the value they bring to this table. This is not only through their strong connections with iwi, hapu and mata waka, their understanding of te ao Māori, and strengthening our role for genuine partnerships as te tiriti partners, but also through the significant subject matter expertise they contribute in their own right. Their networks within this community, along with their financial and governance skills, have consistently helped to inform and strengthen good decision-making around this table. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of our previous Māngai Māori representatives, Jadine, Ollie and Norm. They have gone above and beyond what is required of them, attending and observing workshops and other council meetings outside their formal scope. This level of commitment and dedication, which extends well beyond their remuneration, is something that demonstrates this is a role they take seriously and honour too. More importantly, Māngai Māori is about ensuring all voices are heard so that we can understand different perspectives and make more informed decisions. They enable our partners to fully participate in discussions and in the shaping of decisions to create a stronger region. For these reasons, I strongly believe the Council has been richer for having Māngai Māori as partners around the table, and I will be supporting the motion. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Councillor Pike. Deputy Mayor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mayor McIntyre. Look, respectfully, I don't support the proposal to continue Māngai Māori's role on the Council, and I will be voting against this recommendation of the Chair's report. I want to say up front that I have discussed this with the Mayor. We have agreed that we have different views on this, and it in no way affects our relationship. We are a great team and will continue to be so, and if Māngai Māori are approved today, I will happily support them in their role. But I'm going to be honest here. I was around the table when we decided to try the Māngai Māori concept in 2018, and it was essentially a stopgap measure because the Council wasn't prepared to go the full way and set up Māori wards. And to my mind, it's nowhere near as effective. Representatives are parachuted in every 6 weeks for standing committee meetings without the same ability to utilise all the institutional knowledge the rest of us get on a day-to-day basis. They're really good people, they're talented people, but it's a flawed concept to me. And what they are able to offer within those tight constraints, I think, pales into insignificance when you see how effective our two Māori councillors are around this table this term. That is what has become so obvious to me since seeing the Māori councillors in action. And there's a question here about value for money. We are already a big council, 15 of us around the table. This will add between $300,000 and $400,000 to our costs across the term. But my biggest reason is I fundamentally disagree with appointing people with voting rights to a democratically elected organisation. The people of Hamilton elected us to our jobs. That's what makes us accountable. We're directly responsible to them for our decision making. If we're no good, we get booted out. And I think Hamilton residents deserve to have that power over all of their representatives making decisions on their behalf. We're already fulfilling our statutory obligations to Māori through the avenue of elected reps. That's the correct way to me, not by appointments with no public input and after the fact. And I would much rather see more effort go into getting more Māori elected onto the council, not just in Māori wards, but organically. We've seen what an impact Maria and Robbie have made. That's where we should be putting our effort, because to me that's genuine representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor MacDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair. Our motion today to continue the Māngai Māori model for 3 more years with full voting rights and an annual cost of $144,000 makes it a substantive governance decision. Māori representation at this table is real, valued and democratically expressed in our Māori ward councillors. We have seen that. They're excellent. I also recognise that Māngai Māori have contributed perspective and high quality influence. The question for me is structural. Since the model was introduced, our landscape has evolved. We now have our elected Māori ward councillors participating directly in committee decision making. In that context, we should be very clear about why an additional appointed role with full voting authority and ongoing cost remains necessary and how that overlap is actively managed in practice. The material provided describes intent and contribution. It doesn't establish why the structure remains proportionate in our current governance landscape. In a constrained financial environment, I'm cautious about approving ongoing governance spend and voting authority without holding that structure to the same governance standard we apply to any funded governance role. Clear purpose, proportional authority and structural necessity. I am not persuaded the case has been made. For these reasons, I cannot support that motion.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor O'Leary, please.
Kia ora, morena everyone. Thank you, Mayor McIndoe. Thank you for your Chair's report. My debate is going to focus on the decision in front of us today, which is to continue with the Māngai Māori as part of our governance model. I want to acknowledge our visitors in the chamber this morning as well. Some decisions are political and others, as we've heard in debate, are about governance. This one is about governance. The Local Government Act is very clear. Section 81 requires councils to establish and maintain processes that provide opportunities for Māori to contribute to decision making. Not observe, not react, contribute. It also requires council to consider ways to foster Māori capacity to participate. This obligation sits alongside our responsibility to recognise and respect Te Tiriti o Waitangi, the Treaty of Waitangi. The Māori model, Māngai Māori model, was established in 2018, well before Māori wards. It was not a political add-on, nor was it a stopgap. It was a governance responsibility to that statutory responsibility. Now we have 2 Māori ward councillors elected at large. This is an important and positive step in our representation, but elected representation and skilled appointment serve 2 different purposes. Ward councillors represent voters. Māngai are appointed for their skills, experience and depth of understanding. They bring specialist knowledge and lived insight into this chamber. One does not replace the other. Representation is a ceiling. Representation is not a ceiling, it's a foundation. And strong councils build layers of participation, not minimum compliance. Many in the chamber campaigned on strengthening participation and rebuilding trust in local democracy. Continuing this model is one practical way we can honour that commitment. Providing opportunities for Māori to contribute does not mean creating a single pathway and saying, job done. This model has been in place for several years and it has strengthened the quality of our decisions. And I want to address now the cost directly. Yes, the model costs approximately $144,000 per year and the figure deserves scrutiny, but the Act requires us to provide meaningful opportunities for Māori participation. It's not optional. And consider this, if the model prevents even one significant delay, dispute or redesign during engagement or consultation, it more than offsets its costs. In my view, this decision is about governance stability, legal alignment and meeting our responsibilities properly. The real question for this chamber is, how do we meet our statutory responsibilities in a way that also strengthens our decision making? So for me, continuing the Māngai Māori model is the responsible answer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to acknowledge the expertise and professionalism of Māngai Māori members. I do not question their skills, their commitments, or their goodwill. My concern is not about the people involved, it is about the structure we are creating. Highly capable individuals still sit within models that blurs accountability, duplicates roles, or add on costs without clear evidence of better outcome for all residents. The real test for me is not whether the people are talented, but whether the governance model demonstrates improved decision delivery and value for money compared with our existing arrangement. unless we can clearly show that I remain cautious about logging into another permanent governance layer alongside our democratically elected council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. Councillor Casey Cox, please.
Thank you. First, I want to acknowledge our runanga whānau in the room and our mangai, our previous mangai, and their good work. I also just want to say to tautoko, our Chief Whip's debate. You know, she's really outlined the statutory reasons for why this potential decision to reinstate Māngai Māori makes sense, and I really appreciate that. From my perspective, I guess and I've always been really clear about it, for me this is about Te Tiriti and our commitment to that. So for me, yes, there is a statutory obligation, but we also have a relational obligation, which was set out in Te Tiriti. And regardless of today's decision, we're still a very long way away from meeting the promises made in Te Tiriti. So I see this as an actual small step towards making that real. And I want to acknowledge that the Māngai last term brought, as people have said, incredible skill and expertise, but not only that, they bring with them the might of incredible organisations and all of their skills and expertise and all of that relationship, and that can't be discounted either. I think on a national level at the moment, we are grappling with the reorganisation, potential reorganisation of local government. So for me, a decision today to support Māngai Māori is a strong signal to central government and everyone that actually we see Te Tiriti relationships as fundamental to the future well-being of our city and our country. So I think it sends a really good message at a time when all of those conversations are happening. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casey Cox. Councillor Strange, please.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to comment on your report. Now, the first thing I'd like to raise is, I'm not going to move a motion here, but I'm going to put something out for consideration. I feel like the Chair's report, the opening statement from the Chair on the Chair's report should not be time limited. I was disappointed to see that you had more you were going to say, and and basically you had to shorten your opening speech. So I'd just put that out there for councillors' consideration. At the appropriate time, I'm happy to propose a motion. Maybe even today. I see a few nods around the room, but I just don't think the opening Chair's report should be time limited. I think these speeches should be, and I think 3 minutes is about right. But I'd like to highlight that. The second point I'd like to raise out of your report is you talk about the blessing of the artificial turf, the opening of the Waikato Regional Theatre, and the blessing of the Morrinsville Road roundabout. Now, those three projects all have something in common. Significant money from outside of, a significant investment from outside of council. And I think that is a model that we obviously want to continue and try and build on. So if I break them down, the first one was the artificial turf. So Hamilton City Council put in 1.2 million. There was 1.8 million of external funding raised, and the staff did an excellent job doing that. The Morrinsville Road roundabout has been fully funded by the government, so no money from this council. The the BNZ Theatre, around 25 million from council, and at least 80 to 100 million from external funding. And I'm very pleased to see that. I think all those three are good news stories, particularly at a time when, as a council, we are working hard to support our ratepayers. We've clearly heard from our ratepayers that we have to be more careful with the spending, and what I've seen so far from this council is that we are doing that. So I'm very pleased to see that. And those sort of models are excellent. If there's money there, it doesn't mean we need to access that money by putting in council money, but we'll have a very good look at that. But I'm very pleased to see those three models. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Strange. Councillor Moroney, please.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mayor, for your report. First of all, I'd like to support your comments about the tragedy that has unfolded around the Motu in recent weeks. It's been heartbreaking to watch that, and I think all of us can think about the terrible time that those families and those communities are having. And for this council and for councils around the Motu, the plea I want to make is that the review of what happened around those areas and decisions that led into that are done swiftly so that the rest of us may learn from it, and in particular that this council ensures that we look to the lessons that can be learned from those weather events. On the issue of Māngai Māori, I will be supporting the approach from the Mayor to keep this system in place. I haven't experienced it on this council, but I am currently the CEO of Community Law Centres Aotearoa, a role that I'm going to be relinquishing in a few weeks' time to focus on explicitly on the council role. But in that role, I led a co-governance constitutional change within that organisation, and also established a pilot for kaupapa Māori legal services throughout many of our community law centres in the Motu. And I know through that experience that there is only things to gain and nothing to fear from improving the participation and decision making of tangata whenua and Māori within our decisions and what we do. Some members have talked about how much they value the two Māori ward councillors around this table, and I want to echo that, but also ask those members, those councillors, to hear the advice from those two members on this issue, because that is the lead that I will take. They are the ones democratically elected to have those decisions around this table, and we should be led by what they have to say on this particular issue. So we also, I think, need to listen to the result across Hamilton City, one of which I feel very, very proud about retaining the Māori wards. That was a strong mandate from our community, because it wasn't even close, that our community understands the importance of the engagement with tangata whenua. And we would not be honouring that, in my view, if we were not to listen to our two elected representatives in this field and their view on continuing with Māngai Māori. So I will be supporting the motion. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Moroney. Councillor Mead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mekando. I've spent a long time reading and looking at especially the Mana Māori and talking. And for me, it's about gathering information so I can understand what's going on, and we're weak on that when you start researching. As a new councillor, to understand where and how it sits has been a challenge. It's there, but it doesn't explain why, how, who and what. And as a new councillor, you're asked within a week or so of this coming up, we knew it was coming, but make a decision very quickly about something that I have a real passion for. I wrote down here that at the last election we could have lost the Māori wards with a tick or a cross of a pen, and that still could happen in a democratic world, and that would mean at the next election there's no Robbie or no Maria, and that would be a bad thing. But for me, I needed to understand the whole system, and the whole system is about engaging with Tainui and understanding where they're coming from, and Robbie and Rachel and other members here I've had long discussions with about where I see myself fitting and sitting. I do have a concern with financial viability, as I do with everything that comes to council, and we are not rich, but we are rich in people. And I think that's the thing that has made my decision today is I need to know more about the whole system. I need to know more about how it works, and I need to know more about the benefits to us, but not just in this, but in everything. And that's why I was put here by my electorate, was to ask questions, to look at viability and realise that our community, as much as it is Māori, we also have a large community of other ethnic groups in our city. And we've got to ensure that we look to everybody to make sure we've got consistent outcomes. So for today, I will be supporting the motion and your chair's report, but I am going to be looking for more information and some accountability over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Councillor Bitter, please.
Thank you, Mayor McIndoe. Like others, I want to acknowledge the wisdom that Mangai, Jadine Kana and Oli Tiawa brought to the Council last term. If they were reappointed to their roles, my concerns would be outweighed and I would support the motion. However, as the motion stands, I don't have certainty over that, so I do need to raise this point. When I swore the oath of office as a councillor, I swore to serve the whole community. Not just the Hamilton East Ward where I was elected, I swore to serve the whole community, not just male, pale and stale people. This council doesn't have 2 councillors to represent Maori, it has 15. I listen to Maori along with Asians, Indians and any other culture. I listen to Tainui Group Holdings along with other developers. I even listen to cyclists when they aren't pushing speed bumps. There is an important difference for Mangai Maori in that they have a vote on committees. Mangai Maori roles were created as an alternative to Maori wards. We do not have accountant and architect experts appointed by their professional boards. We were elected at the same time as a referendum on Maori wards. The majority of voters supported Maori wards. I accept that. I note that the question put to the public was, do you support the retention of Maori wards? Not, do you support the retention of Maori wards and unelected Mangai Maori with voting rights? I wonder whether such a question might have had a 2% swing in the vote, which could have changed the outcome for Maori wards. My preference is to stick with the mandate we explicitly received from the public, which did not include Mangai Maori. So I don't support the motion as it stands, but I do and will support the outcome of today's vote.
Thank you, Councillor Bitter. Councillor Niha, please.
Tēnā koe te koromatua. I too will be supporting the recommendation and your report. I am thankful that you did approach Maria and I in discussion regarding Mangai Māori and that we were able to have an input as Kirikiriroa Māori Ward councillors. E matua tami e mihi atu nei, tēnei ki a koe o koro hoki. Kia tau I o ngā manaakitanga te rongorawi e rongi a mātou I tēnei rā. I raro I tēnei kaupapa nui. Kaupapa Māori, kaupapa Pākehā, kaupapa katoa. Mihi atu nei hoki ki whaia Andrea, koutua te runanga I tai mai nei, e Oli, e JD, te ahorangi, e Muna, kei te mihi atu kia koutua I tai mai nei. I te whakarongo, ki nei o ngā whakaaro o mātou. E tautoko ana hoki ngā mihi kia rātou I raro I tēnei kapua pauri, ki tauranga moana, ki te nota, ki te raki, ki te tonga, ki te rāwhiti, ki te whāru, e mihi atu nei kia rātou. I've just acknowledged and supporting my fellow councillors in greeting our Māngai and Te Runanga and our Ahorangi as well in joining us today and listening to our deliberations. One thing I also want to point out that particularly many of these disasters that have happened, there have been emergency people, but you should have noticed also that mana whenua were on the ground at every one of these tragedies. Very important. Significant places, but particularly the Maungatapu o Mauao. The whenua is hurting just as much as our tangata are. Deputy Mayor Taylor, thank you for the glowing endorsement of Maria and I. I would hope, as Councillor Moroney mentioned, that you also endorse our thoughts and our opinions on this topic as well. Maria and I are in support of our Māngai Māori, always will be, and we look forward to working alongside them and assisting us and our strong relationships with Waikato Tainui and Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa. It is very important as a rookie councillor that I too, Graham, understand what the future holds for these positions, but I certainly want to thank our re-elected members, particularly you, Councillor O'Leary. Thank you for pointing out the logistics of this exercise as well. We are learning, I am learning, and I look forward to supporting our Māngai and our organisations, all of our organisations, and albeit I'm a Māori ward councillor, I too support all residents and ratepayers of our fine city, Kirikiriroa. Kia ora rā tātou.
Kia ora, Councillor Neha, and finally, Councillor Huata, please.
He aha te mahi mō runga I te marae e tū nei. E ko te tūi, e ko te tūi. E ko te hono ki te kotahitanga, ki te kuini Māori e tū nei. E tū nei I runga I te mana Māori motuhake e tū nei. Ana, whiti, whiti, whiti ki te tika, whiti ki te ora, whiti ki te rangi Māori e titi ai ho au, au. Aue ha. We are gathered today in the marae that we call the council chambers under the unity of our Te Ariki Nui Kuini Ngā Waihono I Te Pō, who unites all people from across the land and all tribes, no matter what they say. If you go back to Pukawa in Little Waihi, in Taupō on the shores there of Taupō Nui Atia in 1858, there is a stone that commemorates the establishment of the Kingitanga. And on that stone, it outlines the commitment that all tribes of New Zealand made to this movement as a result of pending confiscations in 1863, the New Zealand Settlement Land Act. Post the New Zealand Land Wars, confiscated over 1.2 million acres from Waikato people here in our city and around. Less than 1% of that was returned. So that's only 163 years ago. We have people living that are still 100 years old, so it's in some people's living memory. So just a little bit of a, let us know where we come from. Hoi anō. I just want to acknowledge Mayor Tim and your chair's report and the exciting things that have happened, the opening of the BNZ Theatre. Kirikiriroa has some really fantastic things ahead for us, so I support the chair's report. I'm going to talk some numbers. So Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa is here to represent not only Māori but Pacifica. There are a total of 56,862 people of Pacifica and Māori descent in Kirikiriroa H-Town. You combine that with the 90,000 beneficiaries under the Waikato Tainui mantle, that's a total of 146,862 people that are represented and connected to Kirikiriroa Hamilton. So we're talking about representation. That's who Te Runanga o Kirikiriroa and Waikato Tainui represent. Now, flippantly, we as elected members are elected mostly through a popularity vote, not necessarily because of our skills, knowledge and expertise. But our members, our Māngai Māori, are. So that is the key difference in terms of the numbers that they represent and the reasons why they are elected and appointed to their roles. $120,000 for 3 experts over a year is a pittance, considering the amounts of dollars that we spend on consultants regularly. So it's a numbers game, and if you want the numbers, there they are. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Huata. I want to thank all who have spoken in this debate for your sincerely held views that have been expressed in a very respectful manner. Thank you for the comments that were made on other matters covered in the Chair's report and for the constructive way that we are all working together to tackle the major challenges our city faces. I respect and understand the different perspectives that have been expressed in relation to our need to decide whether to discontinue or continue the Māngai Māori model that our Council has supported since 2018. Decisions about governance arrangements are important. It is right that we have had this discussion. Not all of the allocated budget for Māngai Māori will be spent this year, given the timing of appointments, if this motion is carried. In the context of our overall operations, as Councillor Huat has just noted, and the scale of the decisions before us, this is a measured investment in governance capability. As our fast-growing city navigates complex reform environments such as fast-track consents, potential boundary changes and waters reform, we require strategic oversight, risk awareness and long-term thinking. Boards often bring on that expertise to ensure that they have as much balance and knowledge as possible. And in that context, I believe that we benefit from bringing more expertise to the table. I've appreciated that in the 2 years that I've been an elected member. Māngai are skills-based appointments, and we've heard from all who have spoken that those Māngai representatives who have served alongside us in the past 8 years have been widely respected for their contributions. Ultimately, this comes back to balanced quality decision-making. In my view, retaining the Māngai Māori model maintains a structure that has worked well for us, preserves valuable expertise, and supports Hamilton's growth with balance, cohesion, and foresight. It has not undermined our democratic decision-making, but it has sometimes challenged and often expanded our thinking and awareness of Te Ao Māori perspectives. It has contributed to better, more informed decision-making. It has strengthened relationships in our community, not undermined them. And for these and many of the reasons that have been articulated around this chamber today, I commend this motion to the Council. Now, as indicated previously, members, we will vote motion, which is simply the motion to receive the report that I have moved and has been seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I doubt whether we need to go to the board. I'll take that on the voices. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
Motion is carried unanimously.
We clearly will need to go to the board for the second vote, and that is the motion to, that we approve the continuation of the Māngai Māori model as outlined in your agenda. Could we go to the board now, please? Do you need to clear it? Do we need to start again? Maria, have you voted?
The motion is carried 11-4, 4 against.
Thank you, councillors. And as I say, I do appreciate the very respectful way in which that matter was determined. We move on now to item number 7 on our agenda, which is the application for temporary extension to the Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw. I think we have Sergeant Jim Kernahan with us and also Emily James. To invite them up to the front. So I invite you to join us at the front, please. Will you be speaking to both together or separately? Together, right. So we'll be speaking to both items 7 and 14 together. Emily and Jim, welcome, and thank you very much for making yourselves available to be here today. Do you wish to make some opening remarks?
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. My name is Emily James. I'm a Strategy and Policy Advisor in the Customer and Community Group. And today I'm joined with Sergeant Jim Kernahan from New Zealand Police. Today's report seeks Council's approval for a temporary alcohol ban under the Alcohol Control Bylaw to support policing of the Homegrown Festival at Claudelands Oval on the 14th of March. Police have requested this temporary ban to help manage public safety, reduce alcohol-related harm, and support the effective operation of what will be a large high-attendance event. The proposed ban would apply to surrounding streets and pedestrian routes from 10:30 a.m. till 10 p.m. on the day of the festival. Temporary alcohol bans of this nature are common practice for major events, both nationally and previously here in Hamilton, and are considered an appropriate and proportionate tool to support safe crowd and event management. The report outlines the evidential basis, legal requirements and considerations under the Local Government Act and the Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw. Staff are recommending that Council approve the temporary ban as a reasonable and targeted response to the expected risk profile. I'll hand to Jim.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. Police have requested this. I am the Alcohol Harm Prevention Officer for Hamilton. I have been doing this role for quite a few years, and some councillors may know me from different areas in it. We've requested for the homegrown event, the alcohol ban. This is a large event. It's probably the largest event within the Hamilton city boundaries for some time. It is an alcohol an event, and as we know with music concerts, drugs are likely to be also available and used at the event. The event itself, for our planning, we have quite a large contingent, excuse me, including the use of drones, and we've got the water police coming down from Auckland to monitor the river for the exit of people from the event into the CBD later. We haven't done that previously. That's how seriously we take this issue. It's a high-risk event. It's the first time it's been held in Hamilton, so there's an unknown element to it. The alcohol ban is an effective way for police to be able to intervene with people who may be a potential problem. i.e. if they've got alcohol, we can approach them and have a discussion from that point and calm things, de-escalate issues. The other issue we have is that the event at Claudelands has a large park area outside the venue. We know that there will be effectively probably freeloaders who will go to the park. They can bring alcohol to that area and consume that alcohol, and whatever can happen from that point. The risk of alcohol harm and glassware in the park is always a concern. I'm sure to the council and the Parks and Reserves people, the risk of glass, etc. The obvious reason it stops at 10 o'clock is because there is a citywide alcohol ban after 10 o'clock, so that takes effect of that. But it is a good means for us. We have had experience with previous concerts where this alcohol ban area has been in place, where it is a good way to intervene with people coming across to the main gate, that we can slow them down and give them a warning for that, and it can dampen some alcohol enthusiastic people. For the balloons, it is reported that the balloons are going to be bigger than ever. They were previously at the university in 2019. They were to be in 2020, but COVID killed that. Our issue there is that I'm not sure whether there has been a road closure notice for the Knighton Road, Ruakura Road, but you've got a lot of people moving across, and again, it's a situation where you can get people who don't want to go in, want to have alcohol, and will stay outside and watch the festivities and drink their alcohol. And again, it gives us an opportunity to intervene early before they can cause a problem, because we know that some people will go into this, for the balloons, a very family orientated, that's its main direction, for kids to go along and watch, families to go along and watch, and they can not be bothered by people who are affected by alcohol and may do silly things, which tends to be a problem with alcohol. And that's why we have requested the alcohol bans for those areas, and more than happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Emily. I will open the questions, and could I just thank you again for being here and for outlining so clearly the reasons for the request that you've made. Jim, you commented a moment ago that if somebody were to arrive at one of these events with alcohol, assuming the ban is granted, that you would then have a conversation with them. Can I just ask a little bit more about enforcement action that would be taken? Is it likely that you'd be looking at confiscation of the alcohol, or might there be some more significant penalty applied?
Okay, the process for a breach of the alcohol ban is that the person with the alcohol is required or requested to remove it from the alcohol ban area immediately. If they decline to do that, then we have four options. We can give them a verbal warning, we can give them a written warning, we can give them a ticket, which would be a $200 enforcement ticket, or we can arrest them. Obviously, the arrest date is somebody who is really going to be a major problem, or will be a major problem. Most times it's tip it out, go away, or just tip it out. If you can stay, just tip the alcohol out. If they've got significant volume of alcohol, then we may consider confiscation or seizure temporarily. If it's just a bottle or two, then we'll probably get them to tip it out. That's the normal process for the guys out on the street.
Thank you for that. Are there, Councillor Strange?
Thank you, Tim. When Homegrower was in Wellington, was there a temporary ban? Do you know? Or?
There was a permanent alcohol ban along the waterfront.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't relevant.
So so it was still an alcohol ban area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There are no further questions, so someone like to move. We have Councillor Huata moving, Councillor Corrales seconding the motion. We need to vote on these separately, so this is the application for temporary extension to the Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw in relation to the Homegrown Festival that we're dealing with. I wonder whether we could take it as one debate, but again vote separately. I think that would probably be a sensible way, so same model as the previous debate. Yes, but yes, as I say, I will put the questions separately at the end, but we'll open it up to one debate. So I do need a seconder for, sorry, a mover and seconder for the application for the temporary extension relating to the balloons over Waikato. Councillor Moroney has moved, Councillor Bidder has seconded. So I'll invite the mover of the first motion, Councillor Huata. Do you don't wish to speak?
Quickly, I think safety is key in such huge events like this. I've attended Homegrown, gosh, just about every one in Wellington, and I'm so excited for it to come back to where it actually started as the X Games, and so it's just a great opportunity. So to ensure that it continues to be held here, we need to ensure that there's safety, so absolutely support that.
Councillor Huata, Councillor Moroney, please.
Thank you. Yes, I too will be attending both events and obviously supporting this measure. The issue of alcohol harm is substantial in our community, and any measure that we can take to denormalise the consumption or the overconsumption of alcohol in our community is a good thing because of its contribution to crime. We know that that in the vast majority of criminal activity is fuelled by alcohol. We also know of the implications and the impacts on health, and therefore the burden on our health system and the individuals who suffer those health issues as a result of having alcohol on a too regular basis. I'm not a wowser. I may be starting to sound like one. It's an old term, you know, that some people around this table might not be familiar with. But that's, you know, someone who refuses to be anywhere near any alcohol. I'm not that person, but I've certainly seen considerable harm in our community, and I can't separate how our community feels about safety on its streets and increasing crime, and in particular violence and domestic violence, the association with alcohol, and stand by and not be involved in improving that for our community. So I'm supporting both of these measures. They are temporary measures. Both of these are family-orientated events, and I concur with Councillor Huata, also having witnessed the Homegrown Festival. It actually doesn't perhaps sound like one, but it is very much a family event, as is Balloons over Waikato, and it's really important that our families feel safe and secure in attending those events. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Moroney. Deputy Mayor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mayor McIntyre. Yeah, I support this and I accept that it's necessary on both occasions. It's interesting because I've just come back from overseas where in places like New Orleans, Caribbean, Miami, Key West, where they are more relaxed about alcohol. You can walk around the street with alcohol, and there doesn't appear to be any problems. You know, people behave, and I think it sadly shows where we are as a country. We're still juveniles when it comes to alcohol. We don't seem to be able to drink responsibly as a nation yet without carnage ensuing. So yeah, I mean, this is where we're at. And I would love to think one day as a country we mature enough that we don't have to take these measures, but to absolutely support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, Chair. I see these as both being very targeted and event-specific use of existing powers. The request is based on police advice and experience with large-scale events. In terms of the scope of the request, it's tightly scoped in terms of time and location, and it doesn't change the underlying bylaw with its temporary nature. To me, it's really about giving police the tools they need to help keep our community safe, to manage public safety in spaces around venues. On that basis, I'm in support.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. I'll just make a very brief comment to thank those who have spoken and absolutely agree with the points that everyone has made. Let's not forget how fortunate we are to have these two wonderful events in our city. They are so good for us on a variety of levels, but particularly in really good family-type activity, great for promotion of the region. Sadly, as Deputy Mayor Taylor has noted, we do have a few people who can sometimes spoil these events through an immature and even sometimes dangerous approach to the use of alcohol. It shouldn't be necessary, I think, on occasions such as this, really even to feel the need to take alcohol into the venue. We want it to be a good, safe, wholesome environment for people of all ages. And as I say, my sense is that this is an appropriate measure to ensure that we can make the most of a really great opportunity on two occasions for our city. So I thank you for those who have spoken. Councillor Huata, do you wish to speak again and reply? Councillor Moroney, you moved the second motion. No need for reply. As I mentioned earlier, we do need to vote on the two motions separately. So the first is the application for a temporary extension to the Hamilton Alcohol Control Bylaw for the Homegrown Festival. I think we can probably do this on a show of hands of the voices. So all in favour, please say aye. Against?
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And the second motion is the application for temporary extension to the alcohol bylaw for balloons over Waikato, the Zuru Night Glow event. Again, on a show of hands, please. All in favour, please say aye. Against? No.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, councillors. We're moving along at good pace. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Emily. So we are moving on now to the consequential amendments as item number 8 to the 2024-34 long-term plan. This is page 26 in your diligent.
Just waiting for my team to turn up.
Oh, are we a bit too fast for you, Blair? Are they on their way, or? They're on their way. Right. Well, perhaps we could just have a chat among ourselves for 1 minute, and then we'll resume. Welcome. We're dealing with item number 8 on our agenda, the consequential amendments to the 2024-2034 long-term plan. Now, I understand these are broadly technical adjustments, but given the significance of the matters we're discussing, it would be helpful to have some opening remarks from you, James, and perhaps some opportunity for questions if they're needed.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. Kia ora, councillors. Ko James Clark, Takuinara. Hello. I'll discuss this in two parts. First, the amendment to the long-term plan and the infrastructure strategy, and then the amendment to the policies. I believe you're all familiar with what the long-term plan amendment and infrastructure strategy amendment is, and crucially what it isn't. But for clarity and for those following in the gallery and online, it's a legislatively required update of our existing plans to reflect the fact that from the 1st of July this year, EOI Flowing Waters will be responsible for water supply and wastewater rather than council, as resolved by the previous council on the 29th of May 2025. That's it. The amendment does not and cannot reflect any other changes that have happened since the LTP was adopted, such as those through the annual plan process last year, nor does it, or may it, reflect any additional changes that this council may wish to make. for example, to the planned rates increases. Those will be set out in due course through the 2026-27 annual plan and the 27-37 long-term plan process. Instead, the different rate increases that appear in the amended document relate to the council portion, as opposed to the EOI portion, of the overall rates rises that were set out in the original long-term plan. There's no process required after today's meeting once you've adopted the long-term plan amendment, should you choose to do so, as we've already consulted on the substantive issue and there's nothing further to consult on. This just reflects our plans to account for that decision. And also following advocacy from Hamilton City Council around the unnecessary cost of going through an audit process, that requirement, an additional audit process, I should say, that requirement has been removed. So once the long-term plan amendment has been adopted, nothing further happens, and that simply becomes, or year 3 of the amended document simply becomes the starting point for the annual plan discussions, which will take place in this chamber next month. With regard to the changes to council policies, these are similar in that they're primarily changes that are consequential to the removal of water services. For example, council will no longer have targeted rates for water and wastewater, so the rating policy is amended to remove that rate. It will be for EOI to determine in due course its own policies, and in fact, and it's almost as if we planned it this way. The next item, I believe, on the agenda is EOI talking about its significance and engagement policy. The only other changes in the report relate to a requirement the only other changes to the policies that are included in this report relate to a requirement in local water done well legislation for our significance and engagement policy to include a mechanism for determining whether contracts relating to water services, so in our case just stormwater, are significant. That explains the table that's been inserted at the end of the policy on page 43 in Diligent. I note that table doesn't appear as a track change on Diligent, so I do want to draw your attention to that, page 43 on Diligent. Finally, as we note in the report, there are a couple of other policies that we'll have to update in due course prior to the 1st of July 2026. The developer contributions policy and Three Waters connections policy, those will follow in due course through the appropriate channels. I think that covers everything, but I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, James. Are there any questions for him? Councillor Liu?
My question simply is, when will the revised development contribution policy and Three Waters connection policy coming back?
I'm not sure if I can give you a date yet. All I can say is it has to be before the 1st of July 2026. I don't know if Blair wants to add anything to that.
Councillor, I imagine it'll be through one of those final meetings we have either late May or June on the annual plan. So they are not substantial changes.
Thank you.
Councillor MacDonald?
Thank you. Just want to confirm so that I'm absolutely crystal clear that these amendments don't create any new delegations or reduce council's retained powers, but simply align our existing policies with the transfer to EOI. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. My second question is, in relation to the board appointment and remuneration policy, are there any changes there that alter council's influence over director appointments or fee setting in EOI, or is this simply applying the existing CCO framework to this new entity?
My understanding absolutely is the latter. It's purely taking account of the fact that EOI now exists and has to be brought into that framework.
Thank you, James.
Sorry, I've just been notified by one of my team that we're right. The DC's policy will be by the 1st of July. The Three Waters connections policy, I'm told, doesn't necessarily need to be before July. So I just wanted to clarify that. But we'll happily set out in due course exactly what the timing and requirements are around that.
Thank you. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on item 8, attachment 4, which is the remuneration. So this, as Councillor Mesh just said, this is only about the transfer of stuff to EOI. It's about 4 different bits, so it's only EOI transfer. I notice in there also amongst this is a change in the shareholding to CoLab. Is that because of EOI? It's gone from a percentage down and it's changed in the system? from what it has been previously. It's got to cross out, we had a 16.2 HEC shareholding, and I know we got one vote had a 12, but I noticed in here it's been crossed out, so has the shareholding changed because of Iawai?
James, I can answer that one. There's been no change of shareholding. I think it's just as part of the reformatting of that table, Councillor Mead, they've just clarified how our shareholding for CoLab is represented. So our shareholding as represented remains correct. There are CoLab, there are voting rights and there are shareholding.
Yeah,
changes.
1 out of 12, but it's just the shareholding's changed in this.
So I think it was, I believe it will be just correcting the way it's disclosed. It's certainly not changing our position.
Okay. Yeah, we probably clarify that sometime, yeah. And the last one was, does that mean from today with the movement to Iawai, that in this triennium shortly we'll see as a council the CCO board and remunerations will come back to this council for that discussion still in this triennium to be set?
I don't feel able to comment on what you are bringing up. I note that they have an item coming straight after this, so you might want to direct the question there.
That's right, those are the 3 questions I had.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Councillor Corrales, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, James, for your report. I have a couple of questions in relation to the rates remissions and postponements policy that starts at, I think, page 89. And it's, first of all, the next review date is June 2030, which is, I think, 6 years after adoption of the first policy. It seems like quite a long review period. Is that typical? Is there a reason it's so long?
Yeah, I mean, that's the existing date that we haven't touched that through this process. So it must just be the usual process, yes.
Okay, thank you. And then paragraph 7 talks about Iawai's waiver policy. And I just wondered if you could perhaps explain the difference between remissions and waivers. Are they different things? Just some confusion around what would be applicable, what would come under a waiver and what is technically a remission.
I don't know if Matthew is watching
Yes.
somewhere and might be able to join us, but let me give my understanding. So a remission relates to a rate. So we charge rates and we have remissions that are, if you like, a sort of refund or partial refund of the rate. EOI doesn't have rates, it will have charges. Yes. And I believe a waiver is a sort of terminology for what they could potentially put in place in the way that we have.
I just think it might be useful to perhaps strengthen the policy by defining what would be subject to a waiver and what's subject to rates remission. It was just something that came up when I was looking at the policy. And then the second thing, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that it reads, it appears as though Hamilton City Council will pay out remissions on behalf of EOI, or potentially waivers on behalf of EOI. The question is this: will HCC then be reimbursed for any remissions or waivers that are paid out on behalf of EOI?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't know that. I can perhaps in a break I can get some clarity and come back if.
Thank you.
To clarify, they won't actually go through Hamilton City Council anyway.
Okay.
I think the issue in terms of interpretation is around the fact that Hamilton City Council acts as agent for EOI, so therefore physically they will be doing it, but the actual transactions will be in the name of EOI.
Okay, so there'll just be this flow and no deficit for Hamilton City.
No.
Yep, thank you. Those are my questions.
Councillor, very good, all very good questions. Councillor Casey Cox, please.
Kia ora, James. So just following on from those questions, I guess just wanting some surety for ratepayers that they'll have one port of call for remissions, waivers and all the things, so they don't have to fill out 2 forms. It'll all be together. Is that?
Do you want to take that, Gary?
Yeah, so They will have one point of call, which for Hamilton City Council consumers for EOI ratepayers will be Hamilton City Council staff. The process for actually going through it, we will keep it as simple as possible. I can't guarantee that we might not have to have a form for EOI as an agent. There are certain obligations relative to GST and tax holding where the documentation does need to be separated.
Okay.
But we will do everything we possibly can to make that journey and that process as simple as possible for ratepayers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casey Cox. Councillor Mead.
Sorry, I missed one question from
Back
before.
again.
On attachment 4, page 47, and it's turned to 19, it says where the council has a minority, in brackets, less than 10% shareholding in a CCO, the level of influence over it is significantly reduced. Clauses 19 to 21 modify the application of this policy in the case of minority shareholding. That has been, the 10% has been crossed out and it's changed to 20. Is there a reason, a rational reasoning behind that? Page 47, book 575, attachment 4, and it was number 18, it's now number 19, where it's changed from 20% shareholding. It's gone to 20% shareholding away from 10. Just wondering what the rationale behind that is.
Yeah, I will need to double check with the staff who made the adjustment, exactly what that was, and we will get back to you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. At this point, there are no further questions, noting that that one will come back for an answer later on. Would somebody like to move the staff recommendation, which is carried over pages 26 and 27? That's moved by Councillor Mead. Do we have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Liu. Thank you very much. So we'll open that up to debate. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. For me, this is where we are going, and we've got to get it right, and we've got to support it. A documentation we have here will be evolving and continuing. ERY is on the process. It's a process we have, and it's a process we've got to manage and deal with as councillors and an elected body. So for me, the support of it is there. There's still some things that need to be looked at and worked at before we get to July 1, which I think is great. It's a live document, and I hope it's treated as that. That's why I'm supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there no... Councillor Casey Cox.
Just quickly, I just want to acknowledge the work that the team is doing to make everything as simple as possible, and especially for our ratepayers, to have one port of call is really significant for rates remission. So just thank the team for their work on that front. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casey Cox. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for the information around all of those adjustments to policy. It was useful to get a feel for how the transition to EOI is going to impact and ripple across the organisation. I'm also curious to know the answer to Councillor Mead's last question, so I'll look forward to receiving that. But having had the confirmation that these amendments are simply to align Council's existing policies with the decisions that have already been taken in relation to EOI and don't reduce Council's powers or create new ones, I support the motion.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor McDonald. And I'm just wondering before I invite... Oh, sorry, Councillor Liu, I just would like to see if there's an opportunity to answer Councillor Mead's question before I invite him to deliver his reply, but I'll now invite Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mayor. To me, approving these changes actually reduce confusion by making our document accurate and consistent. So yes, I will support it.
Thank you. Where's Gary? Oh. How are you getting on there, Gary? I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, but do we have an answer to Councillor Mead's question? Or James?
Just while waiting for that, I can answer Councillor Rachel's question about the 6-year review of the policy. 6 years is a sort of legal minimum, so that or the longest we can go before we review it. So that's why we've put that as the review date of when it has to be reviewed by. That's not to say we can't review it sooner if you want to. So we're in your hands depending on when you would like to. I believe Mish might be able to answer Councillor Mead's question about the 10%/20%.
She looks delighted to have that opportunity. Mish, if you're going to do that, we will need you to come to a microphone, please. And she'll speak to you afterwards, James.
I'll give it a go. No, it's fine. The critical issue here is we're amending the policy as of effectively now still, however. So where we talk about the LTPA amendment, it has to exist relative to that. This is putting in place the policy as it is now, and that adjustment is a correction to align it with a accounting standard definition. So rather than leave it unchanged, which means it would be inconsistent, it's appropriate to change it now so that it's effective at that 20% from now on.
Invite Councillor Mead to reply.
Thanks, Gary. I understand where you're coming from. We'll probably have a yarn about it sometime later. But if it's procedurally correct and you're comfortable with it, that's where I'll trust your judgment on that. So
the policy should have always aligned to essentially the accounting standard requirement for significance and influence. It didn't as it was previously drafted. I don't recall whether the standard actually changed. I don't think it did. But we have now aligned it to that standard so that it is correct from now going forward.
Thank you, Gary. Yep, I've no response to or comment. Happy to put
very
it
much
and support it.
Thank you all for the questions, the answers, and the debate comments. It's not really appropriate to be taking questions during debate, but on this instance, I decided it was probably reasonable to allow that. There doesn't appear to be any opposition, so I think we can probably take the vote on a show of hands. Could I ask you all in favour to raise your hands, please? Or any against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
So thank you, James. Don't go away because we'll be bringing you back to the table shortly. But if I could now invite Peter Winder and Hannah Bevan to the table, please, to take us through item number 9, which was the approval of EOI Proposed Significance and Engagement Policy. Welcome to you, Hannah and Peter. This is on page 145 in Diligent.
Good morning, councillors. To introduce myself, my name is Hannah Bevan. I'm the Policy, Planning and Bylaw Lead in EOI, and I'm seconded from Waikato District Council. Here today, I'm seeking your approval of the proposed EOI Significance and Engagement Policy. So this policy is both a legislative requirement and also legislatively we're required to seek the approval of both WDC and Hamilton City Council. The policy has been drafted to align with HCC's existing significance and engagement policy and WDC's existing significance and engagement policy. So what these policies essentially do is outline when councils engage with their communities and what they need to consider to make those decisions around when they need to consult. The policy does have some differences compared to Hamilton City Council's existing significance and engagement policy. These are primarily in line with the Act and additional requirements around contracting, but they are covered in more detail in page 147 of your agenda. Following approval from HCC and WDC, the next steps are to consult on this policy alongside the Water Services Strategy. So I'm very happy to answer any questions on this.
Thank you. Are there any questions? And I'll just point actually before I take the first questions, we usually break for a morning tea around about 11 o'clock, so it is my intention to do that, but I think probably the sensible thing would be to cover all our questions if we can now, and then we'll adjourn and we'll return for the debate after morning tea. So the first question is Councillor Huata, please.
Hey, kia ora, Hena Kipita. Thank you for coming in today. Just a quick question. Has this been presented to Waikato District Council yet?
No, it hasn't been presented to Waikato District Council yet. That's planned for the 25th of February.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora. Just a question around the requirement to consult. So I have asked this in an email, but I just think it's useful for everyone potentially. So the requirement to consult if the budget, EOI's budget is different from the strategy, basically there isn't a requirement, which is different to us. Can you just explain why that difference exists and if there's any opportunity to influence it?
So that the reference to that that's in the policy simply reflects what's in the Water Services Act.
Right.
So there are some differences, but it's not markedly different from the choice that the council has in any year as to whether or not you would consult on an annual plan as opposed to simply proceeding. I suppose the key thing there is we've said we may not. That doesn't mean we won't, and we will be wide open to the views of our shareholders and the community around whether we should or should not. And the policy sets a framework that in essence says these are the circumstances in which you don't necessarily need to, but in any circumstance we can choose to consult in exactly the same way as the council can choose to consult when the matter under consideration does not cross the thresholds that are set out in the significance and engagement policy. That's really important for us in Waikato District, where an issue that is really important in Raglan probably means we need to consult the people of Raglan. Whether we trouble all of the people of Hamilton about the same matter is a different story.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Corrales, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Hannah. Good morning, Peter. My question is around the use of Hamilton City Council's and Waikato District Council's significance and engagement policies as the base for EOIs. And the background is this. So after rates, affordability and speed bumps, consultation was an issue that was very loudly heard about from the community, and it's something that we seem to hear a lot of noise about and get a lot of criticism for. So I'm just wondering to what extent consideration was given to fitness for purpose of this particular policy.
Through you, the Chair. When the policy was drafted and reviewed, it was absolutely reviewed to be fit for purpose for EOI. And if you refer to page 239, which is the late attachments, that does describe the type of circumstances in which engagement will occur for EOI to make it specific for the types of decisions that EOI make. And it is worth noting that for EOI, the type of decisions are primarily around infrastructure, which does mean that a lot of the consultation would occur for the water service strategy, rather than the different types of decisions council make, which might require more engagement. So yeah, I'd refer you to that attachment 1 and the significance and engagement policy, which clearly outlines how it applies to EOI decision making.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. With EOI being a separate organisation and Hamilton City being a shareholder, practically speaking, I'm curious to understand how Council will have visibility over how significance is assessed once it's operating, particularly when consultation isn't required.
So that will fall into the ongoing process of relationship management between EOI and its shareholding councils. The key point of that is through the EOI forum, and in addition to that, the regular briefings that we have committed to ensure that you understand what we're doing and what is coming. and the undertaking that our chair has repeated, that we will be engaging with you when things are in wet cement rather than when the concrete has dried. That might sound informal, but it's genuine, and our strong desire is to maintain a sound, effective and early engagement with both councils and with Waikato Tainui, so there are no surprises.
Thank you both.
Thank you. I think councillors are thoroughly familiar with the experience of wallowing through wet cement, Peter. Thank you for that. As indicated, unfortunately, by a happy coincidence, it's right on 11 o'clock. We are going... I beg your pardon, I'm sorry. I didn't realise I'd seen that. So Councillor Mead, followed by Councillor Moroney.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. Just one quick question. Fit for purpose seems really broad and it allows really fuzzy, and it's a bit like saying affordable housing. How do we know what fit for purpose is actually going to be fit for purpose? Because there needs to be some boundaries about what it is.
So my answer is, when it comes to making decisions about whether or not to consult, there will always be a level of judgment and grey areas. And for instance, one of the most important ones is the extent to which the decision makers understand the views of the public, because you consulted on something very similar quite recently. So it's not always going to be the same decision as you step through things. If, for instance, there's been a wide and full consultation process about options around a particular infrastructure investment that's included the whole business case, coming back to ask the same questions when you come to funding it, and receiving the same views from the same community, is probably not very helpful for anybody. So we just need to be open to the fact that there will be grey choices to be made through this that reflect the particular circumstance that you're in and the judgment at that time.
Any further questions, Councillor Mead? Thank you. Councillor Moroney.
Thank you. On your commitment to, which you've repeated on a number of occasions now, to consult with this council when the cement is still wet. It's great to hear that commitment, but that's a commitment that might be called a gentleman's agreement at this point, and a commitment that could change if the leadership changes. And so my question is, how can we cement in that commitment? Is there a way through this policy that we can cement that in so that in the future that commitment survives?
My response to that is, I don't believe this policy is the place to cement that in. The framework for doing that would be through the EOI forum and the statement of expectations from the shareholders, and that already provides for the fundamental requirement for no surprises and early engagement. And if the gentleman's agreement and that is not delivering what is required, there is a direct avenue for you to be more directive.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I believe we have finished questions, and I apologise to those councillors who I nearly cut off. As mentioned a moment ago, we will go to a morning tea adjournment now. I can advise that there is cake in honour of our CFO's birthday tomorrow, provided by somebody else who may have had one recently. So please, we'll aim to resume at 11:20, please. Councillors, could we resume, please? Thank you all. Just while the last couple are resuming their seats, having acknowledged birthdays on either side of today's meeting, I'd also like to acknowledge that today is the birthday of Mr. Greg Carstens. So happy birthday to Greg, who... Councillors, before the adjournment, we completed questions of Peter Winder and Hannah Bevan related to item 9, the approval of the EOI proposed significance and engagement policy. We will move in a moment into debate. Could I have a mover for the staff recommendation, please? Councillor Huata has moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Casey Cox. So if doesn't require you to speak. If you wish to, you don't need to. Councillor Casey Cox, do you wish to speak? Do any councillors wish to contribute? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Before I get started, I just want to acknowledge up front that there seems to be quite a lot of public unease around water at the moment, and I've heard that directly from residents. People are worried about their future water costs, about loss of control, and about decisions feeling like they're further away from them. The report in front of us is not about whether EOI should exist or whether water services should be transferred. Those decisions are already made. Today's decision is about whether EOI has a lawful, transparent framework for determining when engagement is required and at what level. I read that as setting the rules of the road. Without it, EOI would be operating without a clear engagement framework, and consultation on water services strategy would be delayed and more costly. That said, approving this policy is not an endorsement of how it might be used in practice. The real test will be how significance thresholds are applied over time, particularly when consultation is not triggered. That's where public trust will be built or lost. So I'm supporting this report because I see it as procedurally necessary and legally required. But I do so with a clear expectation of transparency reporting and ongoing shareholder scrutiny. Today's vote enables compliance, but it doesn't diminish this council's responsibility to stay alert to how EOI exercises those powers.
Thank you. Councillor Mead. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mead was showing up on my screen. So Councillor Corrales.
We've just come through an election campaign where it became very apparent to me that public trust in local government is very low, and we see this reflected in voter turnout. We see this reflected in, I believe, the participation or lack of in some of our engagement processes. And I pick up on Councillor McDonald's comments around concern about EOI generally. I think that we had an opportunity to put more thought into how we build trust with the community in terms of our significance and engagement policy for EOI. And so I feel a little bit, actually I feel very uncomfortable about approving a policy for engagement which is replicated or built on a model that has enabled engagement processes that impact or have eroded public trust and confidence. This is a hard decision for me. I'm just going to leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, Councillor Mead. I'm sure I'd seen your name on my screen before.
It's probably just there all the time. Thank you, Mayor Tim. For me, no matter where the cost, income or debt sits, we are elected members of our community are responsible. It sits with us. Transparency, visibility, accountability is going to have to be the crux of this triennium. That's what we hear from the people, even though the voter turnout was small, it's what we hear from those that did vote. The involvement of the community is paramount, and we as elected councillors must be the community's ears and the community's voice. And we are in a situation as a council that with a lot of new and previously elected members, we've got some really, really hard decisions to make in the next 3 years that could shape or will shape our community and our region. So for me at this stage, I'm sitting with Councillor Rachel and just of questions if we can get where we need to be in that visibility status.
Thank you. Councillor Casey Cox.
Kia ora, yeah, I will be supporting this, but I do have concerns, and I think it's good that we do, because I think that's our role, to make sure that these processes work well for our community. Councillor Emma and I have both discussed that issue as well with community engagement and water changes, because, you know, even at the Pukiri Neighbourhood House just this week with their community network meeting, it was hard for me. I felt like I couldn't relay easily what the changes were going to be and the implications. So it feels difficult, and that's not a great position to be in. So as we go along, yeah, clearly we will be watching, and our letter of expectation will hopefully be clear that this part of EOI's relationship with the community in terms of consultation and explaining things well is really important. So thank you to all elected members for their concern, and I'm sure we will continue to indicate appropriate questions on this front. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mayor. I will support this based on this is approval for consultation, not the final policy. However, I also want to be clear that Council must retain genuine influence after this consultation. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. No further speakers. Councillor Huata, do you wish to exercise your right of reply, expanding on your earlier comments?
Yes, I do. As required by the Local Government Water Services Act 2025, we have to have this. And so it's clearly set out in the content and purpose of the policy, and there are those safeguards for these apprehensions that we might feel. The purpose of the policy as read, and perhaps the public hasn't had a chance to see this, and I think that's the concern that I'm hearing, is the ability of us as councillors to be able to relay back with clarity to our public what EOI is about and what they can expect will transfer to them in terms of their responsibility or impact on their daily household. That is actually quite difficult. But I have confidence in the leadership, I have confidence in our representatives on council, that is yourself, Mayor, Tim, and Deputy Mayor Jeff Taylor, as well as the Waikato Tainui appointed shareholders who don't get a vote but can have an influence. And so the policy will enable its shareholders, consumers and communities to identify the degree of significance of issues, proposals. It's all there. I do hope that our public do get to see this, and so they can make themselves also au fait with what's going on. Now, council, through all the ages, are always going to be the scapegoat or the people that get hammered for not doing this or doing too much of that or spending all of this. That's going to be really hard to dissolve. So we have to move forward with confidence and in terms of the experience and the skills that we have around the table and in our staff, but also have that eye that looks over to ensure that we are all held to account. But there has to be a responsibility, and I'm a part of the public as well, to our public to engage and not be expecting constant information that doesn't sit right with them. So kia kaha to the public as well to engage in the processes.
Councillor, thank you very much. councillors, just before we move to the vote, just to ensure that everybody understands that the motion is that we are receiving the report and approving the proposed EOI flowing water significance and engagement policy prior to consultation as part of the water services strategy. So that's what we're voting on. We can probably do that on a show of hands. All in favour, please raise your hands. Any against? One against. So I feel like. Do you want to therefore declare the result?
The motion is carried, noting Councillor Mead dissenting.
Thank you, councillors, and now we will invite James, and thank you, Hannah and Peter again. We will now invite James back to the table as we move on to item 10, the proposed community outcomes for the 2027 to 37 long-term plan. And given that this is essentially based on the Mayor's plan, I'll signal in advance that I will move this motion, and I think the Deputy Mayor is willing to second it. But I'll now invite James to make some opening remarks and then open it up for questions.
Thank you, Martin. I won't introduce myself again. I think I can keep this very simple. Mayor Tim presented the Mayor's Plan 2025-2028 at the 11th of December Council meeting, and Council endorsed that plan. Today's process purely formalises the 7 pillars of the Mayor's Plan as the community outcomes for the 2027-37 long-term plan. That is to say, sensible, cost-effective infrastructure, growing with balance, a central city to be proud of, city places and services that work for people, open for business, a transparent and efficient organisation, and financial responsibility. As we turn sort of substantively to the long-term plan process in the next few weeks, you'll sort of see the relevance of community outcomes and how the long-term plan will be built around those. In the meantime, the only other thing I would say is just a reminder that this doesn't mean that the existing community outcomes completely disappear, or at least not yet. Later this month, the Finance and Assurance Committee will be receiving a report talking about our performance this year against the objectives that were set in the last long-term plan, which was based on the current community outcomes. And similarly, when we set the next long-term plan, that's formally, when we set the annual plan, that is formally a variation of year 3 of the existing long-term plan, which again is based on the current community outcomes. However, you will be able to use the Mayor's Plan as a sort of lens for looking across that and making whatever changes you want to do. So I just want to flag that just in case you see any reference to the existing 5 and you think, I thought we got rid of those. You have got rid of them for 2027 onwards, but they still play a role before then. That's it from me, pending any questions.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any questions for James? Councillor Casey Cox.
Thanks, James. The outcomes are situated within 4 key strategies for Council as well. That's my understanding of the Mayor's Plan. So I guess I'm just after some assurance that outcomes associated with those strategies are also going to be reflected or considered in our long-term planning.
That's absolutely the case. The Mayor's Plan stands in totality. It's just that we're adopting these 7 things as the specific community outcomes, but the Mayor's Plan itself exists and will drive your decision making, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moroney.
Thank you. I'm just going to test to see whether I think you just answered my question or not by asking it a different way. So in the Mayor's Plan, what you've outlined in this proposal is the headlines of the Mayor's Plan. Does it also encompass all of the information that sits below those topics as endorsed in the mayoral plan?
Yes, so I think 2 answers to that question. Number 1, the Mayor's Plan, as I just said, the Mayor's Plan in its totality exists, including the different, not just the 7 pillars, but the different strategies and so on. In terms of adopting the community outcomes, we adopt a sort of series of sort of statements, if you like, or specific things as the community outcomes, but clearly there needs to be sort of detail that underpins those, and that is the detail that sits within the Mayor's Plan. So I think the answer to your question is yes.
And can you Just refresh my memory on the reasons why we are not taking this opportunity to consult on that plan.
So I think the view that was taken in December was that you had just been through the sort of biggest sort of consultation process you'll ever go through of the election, and that basically the mayor's plan was playing back what you heard through the election campaign. So I think that's sort of part one of the answer to that question. I guess part two will be there will be opportunities to sort of socialise those. So, for example, Councillor Angela is working on what the sort of engagement process in the next few months might look like, which we'll be talking to you about at a briefing in a couple of weeks' time. And although that won't be formal consultation on the mayor's plan, it will be a chance to sort of socialise it and get feedback on, you know, what does each thing mean, what do people want to happen under those 7 things. So we're not formally consulting on the mayor's plan, but there will be lots of opportunity for community input through that. And as we go through the long-term plan process as well, I believe the absolutely formal answer to your question is that when we consult on the long-term plan in early 2027, I believe technically we're formally consulting on the community outcomes at that stage as well.
Thank you. That was really what I was looking for there. Thank you.
Thank you. You've just stolen my 2 main debating points. Thank you. Any further questions? There being none, then we will move into debate, and I'll keep my remarks very short. Councillors, I just want to acknowledge again that just before Christmas, you unanimously endorsed the Mayor's plan, which I naturally appreciated. We had, as James has just noted, been through a very demanding election campaign, and quite rightly, a range of different views were debated, so I'm not suggesting for a moment that everything in the Mayor's plan necessarily was exactly as each one of you would have framed it, but I did very much appreciate the fact that you unanimously endorsed it. James has just talked us through the fact that essentially this is how community outcomes and reporting evolve through one plan to the next, and it is important to note that, of course, in the very near future, we will begin the process of working towards our 2027-2037 plan. But for now, this is simply about ensuring that community outcomes are reported through the lens of the 7 major themes of the Mayor's plan. So I do commend it to you. And are there any further speakers? There being none, I don't think I need to or can't exercise a right of reply, so I'll put it to the vote. All in favour, please raise your hands. Against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, councillors. Thank you, James. We move now to the item number 11, the financial contributions policy, and I'll invite the birthday boy, Mr. Greg Carstens, to come to the table, please. What a wonderful opportunity on your birthday, Greg. No.
Thank you, Chair, for my warm welcome. This is my preferred thing to do on my birthday, by the way.
Excellent.
The financial contributions.
The Chief Executive has just told me that. We expected no less from you.
I also have with me our Director of Urban and Spatial Planning, Juliana, who's joining for sort of the part of relating to the district plan where your financial contributions powers sit. I'll just give you a quick intro. So this item seeks approval to adopt the draft financial contributions policy for public consultation. This financial contributions were enabled through your district plan, through Plan Change 12. So in fact, the mechanism and the powers are in place already. This item is about, but you can't collect FCs unless you have a policy which just sets out the mechanisms and the rules and framework behind it. So that is what this item is about. Something to note is that, so it relates to all residential development except in Peacock. And the reason for that is it's on legal advice, but Peacock sits under a specific planning framework, bespoke planning framework, and has its own structure plan. And so there are reasons which at bottom legal reasons as to why that area was excluded.
The charge for financial contribution per dwelling is up to $994 per dwelling, and based on historical growth rates, that's something like $1 million a year in revenue for the council. The FC revenue is mutually exclusive to development contributions. There is no overlap, and you have to be very careful about that. DCs is about recovering the cost of network infrastructure. FCs is about environmental effects and meeting our obligations in respect of Te Ture Whaimana. And so I'll just take questions, and Juliana's here as well for sort of district plan questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. We have several questions, the first being from Councillor Bidder, please.
Thank you, Mayor McIndoe. Financial contributions is new, so it does need some examinations. So I have a series of questions to resolve some potential issues. I'll move through them as quickly as I can. Sections 5 to 11 of the policy identify stages where financial contributions are required. Could the current wording confuse some people into thinking that financial contributions are invoiced and paid at that time?
If I read it, they're clear, but that's not the test. And we had a brief discussion earlier, and I think we're happy to go away and just look closely at them and make sure that they would read the right way for anyone. And the way is that when you get a consent to develop, you get a letter which tells you what your FCs will be, and you need to pay it before you get title or before you get code of compliance. So it is relatively straightforward, so if it's not very clear in the document, it needs to be.
Similarly, with Section 12 notes when councils may issue invoices and FCs must be paid within 30 days. Could this confuse some people into thinking FCs are paid at all of these stages, and can that be clarified before going to the public?
Yeah, I think it's the same answer, so yes, happy to do that and make sure that it does.
And if a project doesn't go ahead, can people get a refund? I couldn't see that clearly in the policy.
So basically, by statute, if a consent is surrendered or if the consent expires, then the payment isn't. There's no payment to be made or a refund. So again, that's in the statute. If you would like that to be in the document to restate that, then that's...
Yeah, that would be good, thanks. Costs are based on number of bedrooms. The definition of a bedroom in the policy is covered in Section 4, and it's not a room with a bed. A bedroom is defined by what it is not. This has caused problems in DCs. Can the consultation highlight this and encourage the public to help to make a better definition?
Yes, I've spoken briefly to the team. I think to insert a question that in the first instance directs people to pay attention to that bit of the policy and then to provide feedback. Absolutely.
Very good. Final question. You and I have spoken about a challenge with consultation. I'll explain the detail in my debate. The question is, will it help staff if councillors give clearer expectations on how to target consultation prior to going out to the public?
This isn't my area of expertise. I would say it's your consultation and your policy, so direction as to how you communicate that is of course, the key thing. I'll probably look around the room to see someone who's better versed in consultation. I'm looking at Dan maybe in the back, although you don't have a mic, Dan.
I think there's a paper coming next month about the consultation process, so I think Councillor Bidder then, prior to that, there's an opportunity for elected members to give some direction around, how you want that to happen, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Very good. That's all my questions.
In the motion, but the questions are very good to help refine the consultation document. Thank you. Councillor Pike.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. In the report, you've mentioned responsibilities to Te Toru Whaimanua and supporting nature in the city programs, but could you also comment on how this funding might also support our resilience, particularly in terms of flood mitigation in light of recent events?
So I might seek expert guidance from you, Juliana.
It wasn't part of what was introduced into the district plan, unfortunately. So it covers, as Greg mentioned, giving effect to Te Toru Whaimanua and other effects of intensification, which indirectly may help with that, but not directly.
Okay, in terms of nature in the city and erosion protections that are...
There is something that, with the part that's going to relate to Te Toru Whaimanua, as part of plan change process, we had another element to the financial contributions, which was related to residential amenity, which comes to this element, but this wasn't accepted by the independent hearing panel. We put an application to the minister, it was denied as well, so it's out of the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. Just one question, Greg, on the, you mentioned before that Peacocks has a different framework and a different sort of program. How is that going to affect the City Council in the long term if that sits outside everything else in the city? If we're doing the likes of financial contributions as developments go on, does that mean another one will get the same thing and they'll miss out, or it just seems to be, it's going to be a sitting there outside the normal framework?
Correct.
I may be able to help, because we had several discussions around Peacocks when dealing with Plan Change 12. So one of the reasons why Peacock was excluded is because they consider all these elements that we are trying to capture for the rest of the city while doing the structure plan. So that's the reason why Peacock had this bespoke treatment at the end.
So will that apply to more, or is it just this one-off?
At this stage, it's this one-off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Casey Cox.
Just a quick question. This policy goes some way towards helping to ensure growth pays for growth, does it? Would you say?
Yes, yes, I would.
Okay.
Because those effects on the environment that then require repair and planting or require erosion protection, those are real costs and they're related to growth, and so yes, otherwise funded by the general ratepayer.
Great. And just in terms of consultation, I know we're talking about it later, but I do note that in the document it says we'll do targeted consultation with developers. The other groups that would, of course, be most interested in this will be the groups involved in restoring our city and natural areas. So can I just note that I'd be keen to see targeted consultation with those interest groups also. Thank you. Is that possible?
Dan's nodding at me from the back.
I got a question.
That might be something you could raise in debate, Councillor.
I asked a question at the end, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you did. And it was a bit, it was, yes, it was an are you aware type question. Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is about cumulative contributions and the second is about future plan reviews. So the first one is, in reading the report, it sets out the per PUD contribution levels and notes that they sit alongside other charges, and you clarified this as well. So I'd like to understand how Council tests whether cumulative contributions remain feasible for delivering the real-world conditions when they're layered alongside DCs and consent costs and infrastructure timing.
Thanks, Councillor. It's a good question. I think the answer is really that it's a trade-off between cost of living issues and feasibility for development, because if you don't, say, charge growth for growth costs, then it will be subsidised by the general ratepayer, generally speaking, and likewise if you have very high DCs and other cumulative costs, as you put it, then you start to potentially create, you move into the feasibility issue. So it's not a simple problem because someone pays in the end.
So how is that trade-off decided?
By yourselves, actually. So, you know, that is the decision of council as to effectively, you know, who pays and through these mechanisms, that's how that's decided.
No, that's great, thank you. The second question is, the report notes that settings will be revisited through future plan reviews rather than automatically. So I'd like to know what the specific triggers are that would prompt us to revisit or recalibrate these settings if economic conditions, affordability constraints or delivery outcomes materially shift.
Good question again. That effectively says, I think, that if the district plan provisions change, then consequently the policy changes, must change. And so I think the question then is, when might, I'm going to ask my own colleague a question, when might the district plan change in relation to financial contributions?
That is not on the near horizon, so.
Does that answer the question? I'm happy to try again.
So there are no specific triggers?
There's no specific trigger. The council can amend its FC policy whenever it chooses. It's obviously sensible to do it with some regularity or not too often. And then again, when the council chooses to amend its district plan as, you know, more fundamental and a bigger question, and again, it really depends on when the appropriate time is. That's pretty not a great answer, but the short answer is when the council pleases, but at an appropriate time.
Right, so we are the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair. First question, the financial contribution of 994 per dwelling plus inflation and GST. Am I correct that that's worked out? You take the 994 and then you look at the CPI rate at that time, or the inflation rate at that time, add that on, then add GST, is that correct?
Essentially, yes, that's how it works.
And would that be done on a yearly basis, or how often?
I think it's yearly. I'd have to double check to be 100%, yes.
That's right. So why is it only being collected for residential development, not commercial development? Commercial don't really affect the environment?
Yeah, it is because Plan Change 12 was a residential related plan change, and therefore it was within that scope.
Okay. The dwelling definition, so if someone's building apartments, so they've got 10 apartments in a block, that will be 10 separate contributions?
Correct.
Okay.
So if it's a self-contained residential unit, then that would be one.
That would be one. Te Turu Whaimana, obviously this is one option to help support that program. Have you explored other options to support this program?
I think, again, Juliana might be better placed. I think the council's has many initiatives to try and meet its obligations, and those obligations are like firm and important. And so I think this is an opportunity for council to, you know, to play a part in contributing to that through FCs. I'm sure you, Juliana, you'd know more about meeting those obligations.
Actually, the FCs is our way of meeting them, but how exactly we're going to do is something that can be worked through.
Yeah. Okay. And final question is, do you expect this will be inflationary on house prices?
No. It's too small on its own.
Okay.
I should say there's one thing I should add, which I think is quite important, is the way that this the money collected works here is that it's collected as a positive balance, and it's only spent, it's only spent from collected funds. So it's quite different from DCs, where the council, debt funds major infrastructure and then recovers the costs. So that this is, this is from a positive balance, which is quite different. It's much less risky and it's more straightforward. So I think I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but it's good. I think it's important.
Sorry, just one more, if I may. Just final question. Would developers be able to claim this as a taxable expense?
I wouldn't know, sorry.
Yeah. That's good. Thank you.
It's a normal cost of business operations. They'll probably have to have some advice, because I can't give it to them, around how it impacts capital or operating cost nature of how they account and claim.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Councillor Corrales, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Greg. Happy birthday. Hello, Juliana. You've said in the report you're estimating 1.2 million per annum, and we're looking at this potentially for a 2-year period before the new legislation to replace RMA takes effect. I'm just trying to get a sense of the cost benefit, and because I'm new, I don't have a very complete understanding of what resources would be required to stand this up and disestablish it. And so I just would be interested in your comments around the cost of going through consultation, the cost of implementing this, any infrastructure that's needed, and then also disestablishing it at the other end, and how does that all look?
Again, that's a very good question too, because these implementation of things like this can be really expensive. In this case, quite inexpensive compared to expectations. So firstly, the DC team who process the each consent as it comes in, there's many commonalities between the two policies, so on purpose, like Councillor Bitter was talking about the points at collection and the way of invoicing, all that's the same. You're going to get the development in front of you, that's the same. So in fact, those same staff will be assessing the FCs, and I think probably that can be done within the current bandwidth there. The software or technology cost is probably pretty low. The staff expertise is there as well. So I think it just happens to be very similar to DC's, and there's some really experienced team there. So I think the costs there are absorbed, without much addition. In terms of costs of consultation, so this is going to consultation alongside a number of other big policies and plans, and therefore, probably adding it in or not to that mix is pretty trivial as well. So I think it's a really good question. I think in this case the answer is a good one, which is quite low.
Thank you. Second question. Later in a submission, I think the team have advocated for financial contributions to continue. Do you have any sense of whether that's likely? Whether we're going to, how likely do you think it is that we'll be able to continue with this charge?
Yes, it's very hard to tell, and I've in a number of things in different areas along the same lines. I would say, if there's something 2 years ago, 2 years in the future, which is uncertain, that means it could be 3 years before it happens. It also, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but this is low cost to at least get through consultation and get the feedback. So it sort of seems logical to get to that stage and take the public's feedback.
Thank you.
The question is about whether the financial contributions apply to social housing developments, whether they're undertaken by the Crown or not.
So if they're undertaken by the Crown, then they won't pay.
Yeah, got that one.
The Crown exemption, yes. And then do you mean is there some sort of remission or reduction for social housing?
Well, under this policy, would it apply if there was a non-Crown social housing developer or provider?
So the starting point would be yes. If it's a house, if it's a home, and it's new, then it'll qualify. It'll be subject to an FC. There is a reduction provision in the policy, so there'd be some thinking, and obviously input from elected members as to what might qualify for that. Could be affordable housing, social housing.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Councillors, as you will have seen, the motion that we'll be debating in a moment is that which is outlined on page 153, and I do want to thank Greg and Juliana for their answers to those questions. which I'm sure we would all expect to see reflected in the refinements of the discussion document. But it will be a consultation document that will come back to us next month for approval before it goes out to the public. So on that understanding, and I do thank you all for the very good questions that have been asked, is there somebody who would like to move the staff recommendation, please? Thank you, Councillor Casey Cox, a seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Moroney, thank you very much. Do you require a debate?
Just quickly, I guess in terms of this policy, it's a great achievement. I think through Plan Change 12 that this has come into being, and it does enable more work to be done to protect the river. And I think under Te Ture Whaimana, that's a huge responsibility that we have. So I think even though there are big changes potentially afoot, as we've been assured, the costs of implementing this policy and collecting around $2 million in the meantime for this essential work seems like a really good way forward. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Bitter.
Mayor McIndoe, the financial contributions policy is yet another cost on new houses, adding around $1,000. The money may well be used to improve the Waikato River, but it could be considered as yet another blow to affordable housing. So when it goes out for consultation, the public needs to take notice. Yeah. The problem is that the public who are building houses in 2 or 3 years' time may not know that now, may not even be in Hamilton. So how do we consult with them? This has been a problem with many district land changes. The vote today is whether we proceed to consultation. I intend to proceed. I think councillors need to engage with staff prior to going out on how best to target that consultation to give staff certainty, to save time and cost, and get the information that councillors need. My suggestion is that council directly contacts major home builders like Pragma and De Silva as representatives of the future clients who don't know how to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I'll support this item so consultation can proceed, but I just want to put a bit of context about how I read it. First of all, it seems to me that historically Council has increasingly relied on financial and development contributions as a substitute for harder discipline, particularly capital prioritisation, sequencing of infrastructure to actual demand, and confronting affordability constraints directly. Second, there seems to be, to me, a tendency for Council to treat contributions as neutral pass-throughs, to underweight cumulative affordability impacts and to assume theoretical recoverability rather than always testing against real-world feasibility. The report partially mitigates some of that risk through clearer methodology, but I don't see it as fixing the underlying culture. Last, once policies like this exist, they can become default revenue tools. They can be insufficiently revisited as conditions change, and then they can become insulated by a "we've already consulted" logic. At this stage, I see this as an enabling step. Allowing consultation to occur is appropriate, but my support for this item is not an expression of comfort with Council's broader settings. Those issues will be dealt with substantive decisions when they come back to us. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers, Councillor Casey Cox, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
Just a little bit. Just in terms of affordability and housing affordability, as Greg noted, this contribution is small relative to the costs of building houses. So, yeah, it does add to the cost of development, but it is a very marginal cost. However, in terms of the environment, we do know that our river has been significantly degraded. We know that we can barely swim in it. We can hardly eat from it. There's lots of environmental impacts that we've failed to address over many years. And so I see this opportunity, and our community will respond as an opportunity to do better by it and to not impact affordability as may have been suggested. Kia ora.
Thank you. I think on the indications from the few speeches we've had, it's probably safe to have this on a show of hands. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Any against?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you again, Greg and Juliana. James, it's your opportunity to come back to the table. Up to you to decide whether you need to introduce yourself or not. But we'll move on to item number 12, which is the submissions to central government. And I'll just give advance warning that I am aware of the fact that there will be at least one question that may need to be given a little bit of context, so I will show some sort of lenience to enable the context to be given to explain the questions, but don't want to preempt what James is going to take us through.
Thank you, Matt Tim. Kia ora. We're in a period of unprecedented change at the moment. There are at least 3 of the government reforms that I could make an argument for them individually being the biggest reform the sector has faced for many years, never mind the cumulative impact of all of them. The direction that the Mayor and Senior Councillor Angela has given us is that we should provide submissions on these consultations, but not seek to debate each aspect of the proposal, but really focus in on what are the key sort of deal breakers for us as a growth metro. So that's the spirit in which we approach the rates capping submission, which had to be submitted ahead of the deadline last week, and the way we've approached the submissions that are before you for approval today. As you may have seen from my email last night, we've added an additional submission as a late attachment through which we're seeking Council's approval of a draft letter from Mayor Tim supporting the submission made by the Waikato, well, at least the draft submission from the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Committee to the Emergency Management Bill. The CDEM group is chaired by Councillor Emma, so she may wish to speak to that, or at least will certainly answer any questions that anyone may have on that bill, on that submission. Similarly, Greg, Juliana and Grant are in the room. They're the experts on the individual submissions that we'll be discussing, so they may be able to they'll be able to answer any questions that you may have on the individual submissions. But first, I know that Hammer just has a bit of commentary around the fast track and boundary change elements of the submission on the planning bill. So I'll just hand over to Hannah.
Thanks, James. Good morning, councillors. We just wanted to draw your attention to a section in the planning bill submission, the bit specifically related to fast track and the boundary changes. So since the draft was completed, we've had a number of discussions with other councils and with central government regarding the boundary related issues that we encounter as a result of fast track. You'll recall at a recent meeting we talked through that, the number of fast track areas around the city and the local government process that doesn't keep step with that timing for fast track. So our draft submission does currently raise this issue. We're looking to strengthen it, however, with some specific amendments to the legislation to make it easier for the Select Committee to look at solutions. So these changes are really around consequential amendments to the Fast Track Approvals Act. You'll recall in our submission to that last year, we did raise it, but it wasn't dealt with. We want fast track panels to be able to consider cross-boundary issues and also give them the power to provide recommendations to the Minister for Local Government that a territorial authority boundary could be changed to give effect to fast track areas or other logical land around that area. And additionally, there would be a consequential amendment to the Local Government Act to enable the Minister for Local Government to recommend through the Governor-General an order in Council to actually make that happen. So quite a technical request that we're looking to put in there, but we think that it makes it easier for the Select Committee to actually give effect to that request. So happy to take any questions on that.
Hannah, it's just worth noting that that section that Hannah's referred to starts on page 188, paragraph 51 of the submission. So that is already there, but as Hannah said, that we're just proposing to strengthen that wording to make it even more clearer following our conversations with senior government officials in Tauranga City and other councils.
Thank you, Blair. Thank you. James, do you have anything further to add at this point? Well, look, as James has indicated, this is a substantial body of work covering a number of different submissions. So I'm thinking it might be helpful if the questions are related to each submission in turn rather than going back and forth. So we have the 5, because of course there's the CDEM one as well, which isn't indicated on page 172, but is in the late attachment. So perhaps if we could have questions first on the Planning Bill and Natural Environment Bill Act first. Are there any questions on that? Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you,
Mayor Tim. So, is it all right if I give just a little bit of preface to this? So, a little while ago, I raised the concern that the changes being proposed by government will require regulatory relief, i.e. compensation, where zoning changes affect the rights of people to use their property in particular ways. And my question was, what impact does that have on designating significant natural areas? Would it mean we would have to compensate for property owners for any new significant natural areas? Would it potentially affect our current significant natural areas in any way? And so are we able to strengthen the submission in that regard to express some concerns around the lack of clarity on that, and also the need to not hamstring councils, which are financially constrained, from actually protecting the natural environment?
We did raise something about some concerns that we have, but I agree, and we can definitely strengthen that part so we can be more clear, because as I mentioned before, we still don't have clarity if this is going to apply for everything that is protected or only for new features that we identify. So we are more than happy to add something else.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Casey Cox.
Yeah, just following on from that, I guess I agree that we need more strengthening. I just wonder, in terms of some of the definitions that are used, if we could be a little bit more explicit in asking for those to be further clarified, like the restricted development potential, like what exactly that is. So just requesting for more clarity on that. And I note that we, in the submission, we talk about ministerial powers, and we broadly support their expansion. Could we be a little more nuanced in that? Because there is, as I read it, the potential for the minister to prioritise economic development over environmental, and I think in the Mayor's plan we're after balance, and I think if we could just be a little bit more explicit in that regard, so a little stronger. And then also in environmental limits, I know we've supported them, but again, the potential for ministers to have some influence in that regard. So again, just asking if we can be a little stronger in how those environmental limits are set, and just request that detail and perhaps some restrictions on ministerial power in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anna. We definitely can strengthen all of these points in the submission.
Yeah, thank you.
Just in terms of that question, I think probably just for elected members, it's probably quite important from the architecture of the bill to understand how it works, because the bill itself sets out the broad architecture about how the legislation, the planning bill, the natural environments bill, but in a lot of cases it is light on detail, and that is going to be set across to a secondary legislation in terms of orders in council. So a lot of the detail, I think, Councillor Casey Cox, in terms of what you're asking for there, possibly will come through regulation. Now, fundamentally, in terms of law drafting, some of that detail isn't available to us at the moment, and that will come through that process, which will have a limited ability to influence, if any, in that process. So there is still quite a lot of information that is to come through regulation that will either inform how we deal with that or not. So just to know, just in terms of how the government is actually dealing with the legislation, all those two bills.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Any further questions on the planning bill? No, well, we'll move now to questions on the simplifying local government submission. Are there any questions? Appear to be none. Therefore, the third is the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Amendment Bill. Are there any questions on that submission? Again, there are none. The fourth is Going for Housing Growth, Supporting Growth Through a Development Levies System. Are there any questions on that submission? We're doing well. And I beg your pardon, Councillor Casey Cox.
Yeah, So in our submission, we don't make any mention of potential impacts on housing affordability. So I just would like to understand the impacts we perceive, if any, and whether the development levies approach allows for emissions for affordable and social housing, and if not, could we advocate for that? Yep, that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. First part of the question about housing affordability. So this is a exposure draft for a bill, so they're actually some significant parts that they're yet to put in. One of them is how to calculate the levies. So we're really, very hard to tell what the impact is in like sort of dollar terms. It certainly will level the playing field. So if you have one levy area across the city with everyone, every same development has the same levy, then it's going to have, upward effect on some and downward effect on others. So again, at this stage, based on this framework draft, we can't dig down enough to do that. Does it allow for emissions? It does. The legislature or the bill explicitly allows for emissions, and that's for the council to determine, and those are the debates that I imagine will be similar to what we've had previously about what might get a reduced development levy or not. Can you remind me the third part of your question?
I only had two.
Oh,
That's
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions on the fourth submission, and then the fifth, therefore, is the CDEM late submission. Are there any questions?
Just speak to that.
I definitely would love.
generally?
I hope you will speak to it. At this point, we're just taking questions before we move to
I
debate.
just meant introduce it because they didn't.
Um,
Up to you. Open to.
Has everyone had a chance to read it? Yeah. If you can perhaps briefly give some context, you've done a lot of work on this, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, just to help provide elected members some comfort. So through the Waikato CDM Joint Committee, myself and HCC staff Calvin have had about a 6-hour meeting along with many mayors and deputy mayors across the region, as well as civil defence technical experts. So they've all inputted into this. Summary of the submission, and the intent is that we support the intent of the bill. We support the stronger requirements to engage with community, but are concerned about the unfunded mandate that comes with the extra responsibility, particularly with rates capping potentially being introduced to further restrict our ability to recover costs. We support the requirement for stronger engagement with Māori and disproportionately affected communities, but note that there's a gap on the guidance on what this exactly details. We support the infrastructure and boundaries alignment to allow for better information sharing across territorial authorities. But again, request clarification of roles and responsibilities, as there's a lot of disconnect throughout the bill on these terms. We request that the emergency powers remain with the controllers to allow for appropriate technical capacity and to remove the potential of dual powers, which currently remain a bit unclear throughout the bill. Support more clarity, particularly during transition phases of emergencies. And finally, on reimbursement and welfare support. So the bill currently allows for central government to reimburse local government, but doesn't remain silent on iwi hapu marae who have supported response. So again, just highlighting the unfunded mandate there. So yeah, with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Pike, and I apologise. I should have offered you that opportunity to provide that context, so thank you for doing so. And could I also just acknowledge the very significant work that you have been doing in this area, and note publicly that you are receiving widespread praise throughout the region for your leadership and input, so thank you for that. Are there any questions which would be directed to Councillor Pike? There being none, oh, sorry, there are, sorry. It's funny how there's a bit of a lag. Yes, from Councillor Casey Cox.
Thank you. No, just a question. In reading the submission, I guess I was struck by how it seemed that there'd to be a lot of frustration in terms of relationships. So I guess I'm just asking, from your perspective, like, has the sector been well engaged with this developing bill, or has there been limited engagement?
This is the second reading, and we have provided an initial submission. We support the intent of the bill, and just think there's some gaps that need improvement. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Casey Cox. Councillor Corrales.
Thank you. And this is not to undermine all the work that has been done with some urgency and at pace. I was not aware that this had come through at 5 to 10 last night, and so I have not had the opportunity to read the submission or the supporting letter. And I'm not sure how we can deal with that for myself today. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I acknowledge that. I guess it only came to my attention that we weren't submitting on it 2 weeks ago, at which point I raised it, and then went through the appropriate process of going through the Chief Whip, and then it escalated to the Mayor's office. I guess it's not a full submission, and that's part of the reason why it's a letter of support of the work that has been done through the committee and the technical experts that have input into this. So yeah, I appreciate it is not a perfect situation, but also acknowledge that central government haven't given us a lot of time in general, and I'm not sure that staff would have the capacity to add to this if they did have, if they were instructed early.
My comment was not to attribute any blame or fault.
Yeah.
It's just simply a statement of fact that I haven't had the opportunity to read it.
Yeah.
And so how do we deal with that from here?
Mayor Tim, I can put forward a proposal if you would find this helpful. So the deadline for this submission is Sunday.
Yes.
If this is purely a case of giving everyone time to read it and fire in any thoughts, we could perhaps put in a process of, say, by 12 o'clock tomorrow, any comments are shared through, I guess, me copying Councillor Angela, and then we could make the submission at that point if there's agreement for it at that point. So we would just need to tweak the extra recommendation today to make it more sort of tentative, that you're giving sort of conditional approval subject to commentary by tomorrow, or however you wish to word that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Corrales, for raising concern. If we were to do that, of course, we'll have to have a further amendment to the motion that is on your screen at the moment. The red bit highlighted relates to this particular submission. Is it subject to feedback to be received by midday on Friday the 13th of February? Would that suffice to overcome the problem? Now, in the event, and I think it's the unlikely event, but I shouldn't predict it, in the event that there was significant division of opinion, then that does question whether we would send the submission. So does the motion allow for that possibility? I'm just asking what sort of difficulty we would have if, say, 7 elected members sent feedback by midday tomorrow and there was a clear division of opinion, which would suggest that we can't really adopt it. How do we do?
That makes it your call, the wording at the moment.
All right.
And is whether you're comfortable with that.
A decision or not. Yeah.
Yeah. As I say, my instinct is that it's unlikely, but I don't wish to subvert the process, and the concern that you are raising is a valid one. Can I just get a sort of indication, do you feel comfortable generally with the way that this motion has been amended? Is anybody? That it would ultimately come to me and I'd have to make a judgment call if I felt there was sufficient division of opinion. We might have to find a way of coming back to you. Otherwise, it would be included in this motion, or rather, it would go with the others. You happy with that? Okay, that being the case, it's been really helpful. So we have a staff recommendation which now includes the 5 motions, so this has been amended from the original motion that appeared in your agenda. Given that there were only questions on a couple of the submissions, I think we can probably take it as one debate on the 5 submissions. Could we have a mover, please, for the motion that is on page 172 of Diligent and now includes item F? Do we have a mover for that? The Deputy Mayor and a seconder, please. I'm wondering if Councillor Pike would be willing to, given that one of these is a result of your work. Okay, so we now have a motion on the table. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak to it?
No, I'm happy not to, actually.
No. Just wait to see. No one else wishes to speak? There being no... right. Seems that every time I look away, I come back to my screen. And it's usually Councillor Mead, but not on this occasion. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. I wish to make a comment about process rather than substance, and Councillor Corrales has touched on this already. The submissions in this item on their own are not unreasonable in size. My concern is about the cumulative effect of how material is coming to elected members across the agenda as a whole. I appreciate the huge amount of work that goes into preparing submissions and reports and the agenda and all of that work. However, I also appreciate that submission times are often set by central government. We don't have control over that. However, good governance requires scrutiny rather than rubber stamping, and proper scrutiny requires time. This meeting is supported by an open agenda of over 500 pages. The agenda continued to grow after the 5-day cut-off, which I think 5 days is already short. James referred to an email that came in at 10 o'clock last night, but that wasn't the only late addition. That makes it very difficult to read, digest, and test what we are being asked to formally approve in a way that supports good governance and informed decision-making. When we're asked to approve advocacy positions and delegate authority, even when staff work is sound and intentions are good, the quality of our scrutiny still matters. Reliance on assurance becomes a necessity rather than a choice when volume and timing stack up this way, and that's not a healthy default for elected members. This isn't about imposing engagement with central government or the substance of these reforms. It is about signalling the way the material is paced, sequenced and brought to council, and it affects our ability to govern well. If there isn't sufficient time to be across something properly, from me, the answer will be no. For that reason, as a marker about process discipline rather than content, I won't be supporting this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pike.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to start by thanking James and all the staff for the enormous workload that has come into all these submissions, particularly given the short timeframes and over the Christmas period that has been set by central government. As Councillor MacDonald has highlighted, it's not good process and doesn't allow for great scrutiny when we're given these short timeframes, and doesn't allow for great feedback. When I think about the emergency management bill, you know, the staff are pulled into a 6-hour meeting in the middle of an emergency response and recovery mode. So, you know, this is crucial to the work they're doing, but the time frames and the restraints during that period is already immense. So, yeah, I guess that put them in a difficult position to be able to respond to something that directly relates to them, but yeah, limited their ability to participate. And I think now it has been extended to note some of the groups that weren't able to submit. So yeah, just acknowledging that it's not a perfect science, but I do actually think it's worth putting our input in, because these bills are going to go ahead regardless. So yeah, I appreciate the limitations, and it's not a perfect science, but appreciate the ability to respond as well.
Councillor Pike, Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I just want to appreciate all the comments that have been made on the process, and I am going to touch on the process. It really doesn't matter at times how robust our process is. Some matters are always going to come at us thick and fast, and they're going to be on somebody else's agenda and somebody else's timeline, and we need to be nimble and flexible, or we will grind to a halt. The process that we have put in place for submissions will work, but as Councillor Pike clearly outlined, a lot of these started through the holiday process, holiday period, when staff were busy working and we were on a break. So I want to thank them for the huge amount of work that they've done. This is a bit of a backlog of submissions. I can assure you that the process will work when we can work it and when we have control from here on in. Also, we must operate in a high trust environment. And I have been incredibly impressed by Councillor Pike's leadership in this space. And I've seen many elected members over years been involved in civil defence and sort of fallen asleep at the table, and she certainly hasn't done that. She's stepped up and taken a leadership, and she's absolutely doing us proud, and I'm so proud of her. My final comment really is, if we rely solely on the process, then we won't be flexible and we won't be nimble, and unfortunately that is local government, and you have to get used to moving quickly at times. So yeah, again, thanks staff. This is a huge piece of work, and thank you, Councillor Pike. I trust that you have complete oversight over your particular submission, and happy that you take some of the workload off me for having to fully read and be all over everything, because that's what trusting our colleagues is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whippy. Well said. Councillor Casey Cox.
I almost wasn't going to speak because our Chief Whip basically said what I was going to say, but and so I agree with all of that. I did appreciate the small conversation or group meeting we had with Greg around the levy, and so I wonder about the opportunity to have some of those kinds of engagements going forward, which just help to talk some of these submission processes through. But yeah, I think in terms of the high trust environment, that's absolutely critical. We also have approved the Mayor's plan together, and that has been, as I saw, reflected in all of the submissions. So we have provided some direction together, which has been taken on board and threaded through all of these submissions. And also there are, of course, numerous strategies and documents which indicate Council's direction, which again are feeding into a lot of the submissions. So it's not like they've just come out of nowhere. They're based on the work that we've already done, and they support that. So, but I do have some sympathy for having to read these last minute things. I think we're all in that boat, and staff especially are in that boat, and central government has imposed some ridiculous timeframes on us. So I will push back to them and say, please stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corrales.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I too want to acknowledge the staff, because this is a huge body of work. I know that some of this started before Christmas. People didn't have breaks over the Christmas New Year period, unlike us. And I do, just want to celebrate where they've landed in terms of, what has been put together. my comments about the email last night was simply I haven't had a chance to read it, so I can't actually contribute to the decision making, not to criticise anybody. I am diligent, so I do want to read things before contributing to any decision. A general comment in relation to, just in terms of the agenda pack was frustrating, but I think we can take some of that stuff offline, so we've got some feedback for the team. It's not just the submissions. A general comment about some of the submissions. Now, I have a hesitation about the growth agenda, which I have expressed in different forums. And I know that this is driven by central government, not necessarily whether it suits Hamilton. We know that growth doesn't pay for growth and that our community can't afford it. And so I think it would be really great if somewhere in those submissions we were able to reflect with more centrality from the Mayor's plan the pillar of growth with balance, because I think that's what we are trying to achieve for our community as we move forward. Other than that, thank you very much to the team.
Thank you. Councillor Moroney.
Thank you. I want to support all of the comments that have been made so far, particularly around thanking the staff for making their very best endeavours with a very large workload at a difficult time of year. But to add to the picture that, yes, we are not in control of many of these timeframes, and many of them will be awkward for us. The question really comes down for elected members about whether it is better to have done every little bit of due diligence that we would all want to do on submissions of this nature at the expense of the soon-to-be third largest city of the country having no input into significant issues that the government are debating. And that's the balance, really, that we have to strike. And in my view, I want to be able to trust and know that the staff will be working through a Kirikiriroa Hamilton lens when they are doing these submissions, and with the overlay now of as Councillor Corrales quite rightly pointed out, the Merrill plan as the filter for these. And if we are assured about that, then on a needs-be basis, I don't want to use the word comfortable because it's not a comfortable place to be in where you haven't been able to read everything, but have the confidence to know that having an imperfect process is better than having no voice at the table when those decisions are being made. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Actually, much of what I was going to say has now been covered. So I just want to briefly say thank you first to staff for all of the work that's gone into these submissions, and thank you also for taking on board the feedback around the significant natural areas. We face some big potential changes if some of this goes through, and so I look forward to seeing how we as elected members start to talk about what our views will be, for example around representation reform. If that goes ahead, that's a massive conversation. In terms of the emergency management bill, I do want to thank Councillor Emma for making sure this did come to us for our council to support the group's submission. This has been put together by experts, but also with Councillor Emma's eye over it. And as Councillor Angela's already said, she's taken the role extremely seriously and has put a huge amount of time into it, but also into bringing back issues to elected members and being an advocate where it's important. And so I do trust, and we do need to trust each other in some cases with this, because otherwise we're all going to burn out trying to be on top of absolutely everything, when actually part of the reason we each have responsibilities is for those people to then do extra work in that space on behalf of everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Huata.
I absolutely support all of the debates being made and all of the comments outlined by each of the elected members. I'm just going to hope that our representatives at the table at central government level, who represent us not only at a national level but at a global level, are watching. Because too often we operate in silos and it's local government versus central government, and that needs to stop. So, honorary tama potaka, Honorary Ryan Hamilton. And now, because we've got another voice there from an H-Town Kirikiriroa perspective as a list member for the Labour Party, Honorary Georgie Dancy. Whakarongo mai. Hopefully you're listening, and that's where the pressure is. And so let's ensure that those pipelines are clear and open and that they are advocating for us. And, of course, our Hauraki Waikato MP, the beautiful Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark. Well, I don't need to give her a WhatsApp, just those other ones. Okay.
In part, I mentioned that. In part, I mentioned that because I was reminded on Friday that at Waitangi Day that I should have acknowledged her, and I'll make a point of ensuring she is in my notes in future. Councillor Strange.
Thank you, Chair. Support what the previous speaker was saying, and I'm sure they are watching, so... I'm sure they are. Certainly the three of us would have been in the past, but we'll leave it at that. We won't make a competition out of this, so. All right, on a serious note, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just touch on a few points in the Mayor's letter. I think that the letter was well written and raised some very important points. One which has been well canvassed over many years, I'm certainly not the first person to talk about this, is the GST on rates. And for those watching and listening who are not so familiar with that, it's the fact that we charge rates to our ratepayers. There's a GST component on that, and then that GST component goes to the government. In my mind, it's actually comical. Is sort of, I think, an accurate word on this. So I'd certainly like to see a change on that. I'm not optimistic about a change on that, but I think, in fairness, that I think a change would be right, and maybe a political party coming up to the election may choose to have that as a campaign. Who knows? We'll see. The second aspect around, in terms of the Mayor's letter, is the genuine partnership, and I think it absolutely goes without saying. The importance of having the genuine partnership. It's about us not criticising central government. It's about central government not criticising local government. It's about working together. We have many layers of government at the moment, and it's absolutely vital for the people in New Zealand that we work together. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. As others have indicated, the contributions that all of you have made have been really very compelling, and I do thank you for that. There's too many for me to be able to respond to, but I thank Councillor O'Leary, whose experience shows through as she talks about the realities of needing to be nimble in local government, and the fact that from time to time we just have to be able to respond very, very quickly. I strongly echo Councillor Moroni's comment that we are better to get a voice into central government and not to be too worried about dotting every I and crossing every T. It is really important, and the three of us who have been in central government all know how important it is to receive those submissions. Councillor Pike, thank you. As I said before, you have done a wonderful job in this area. The letter that is in my name very much reflects your work, and I'll be proud to sign it if this motion is carried. As I say, all of you have made compelling comments. I do also want to note, as others have done, that this required a huge amount of work by staff, particularly over the summer period. Some of us were not here at the time. As a new mayor, it's almost been overwhelming to have to deal with the complexity and the magnitude of all of the different topics that are being thrust upon us by central government at the moment. This is an unprecedented scale of local government reform. Much of it I welcome, but nevertheless there's a huge amount to have to respond to. And so staff, I thank you very much indeed. But I'll finish also by strongly endorsing the concerns that Councillor MacDonald made before. It is not good for us to be in the position where we are dealing with huge agendas, and this is not intended as a criticism of anybody. It is simply a comment on good governance, that it is not a good position to be in where we are receiving huge agendas which continue to grow in the immediate lead up to meetings. I confess to you that I went to bed at 2 o'clock this morning, and it was simply because of the magnitude of material that had to be read. So thank you all very much indeed. We have a motion. I beg your pardon, yes, sorry, the right of reply for the Deputy Mayor. Yes, you've spoken. You've spoken.
I was just going to say that in Ryan Hamilton says he can confirm he has fresh coffee from Copperfields in Wellington, and he's definitely not tuned in. Sorry to disappoint us.
He will probably also be pleased to hear that Councillor Huata promoted him to the rank of minister, because actually the honorific is honourable, not honorary, and you only have that once you have been appointed a minister. So that is why we have the Honourable Tama Potaka and Ryan Hamilton MP for Hamilton East and Georgie Duncy, our new MP. That's the distinction, but simply for clarity. Right of reply from the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor McIntyre. Yeah, look, listening to the debate, I just did want to say something. In response to Councillor McDonald, I just want to say that I am enjoying the new energy and vigour that the new elected members are bringing to every debate. And you are bringing a new energy to this council, so thank you. Submissions have always been tricky. A submission has never gone out that I 100% agree with, and it nags away at you, or nags away at me. And we have got a better process for dealing with it now through Councillor O'Leary's structures, but even then, the sheer plethora of them has just been, I think, unprecedented, and I feel for our poor staff over the summer months. And I agree with both sides here. Councillor Thompson's right. What I've learned is you kind of have to have subject matter experts, because we can't be 100% over everything, and sometimes I've found you have to lean on people who've spent more time dealing with something than you have. So that's kind of the compromise I find myself making sometimes, that, you know, if Emma says this is okay on civil defence, then I'm inclined not to go and study it up myself, because I know that she's over it. But totally understand the desire to get over everything, and I don't want you to stop doing that, because I want the scrutiny that you are applying is really healthy and good for this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Members, it has been signalled that this will not be a unanimous decision. Nevertheless, I think we can probably take the vote on a show of hands. So the motion, well, it has been up on the board, and I think it's clearly understood. It's certainly been well debated. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Those against?
The motion is carried, noting Councillor McDonald dissenting.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our formal business in the open committee. Oh, I beg your pardon. So I ticked the wrong item. I'm sorry. You're quite right. We have the recommendations to the Council from the open committee meeting. This was the meeting chaired by Councillor Huata on Tuesday of this week. Councillor Huata, do you wish to move that resolution to, it simply adopts the recommendations coming from your meeting the other day. So Councillor Huata will move. Do we have a seconder for that? Perhaps her deputy, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Are there any questions? I wouldn't have thought there would be, but are there any? No. Do you need, or do you wish to exercise your right to debate? No. Then we will put that motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Against? No.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you, and thank you, Karen, for picking me up on that. I was just going to make the point, it's 10 to 1, and ordinarily we might break for lunch, but my instinct is that the PX meeting... my instinct is we can deal with the next items. So are you happy for us to continue? Staff are okay with that? Then I know we need to have the resolution. So would somebody like to resolve? Councillor Pike has moved. Councillor Bidder has seconded that we our standard motion to exclude the public so that we can go into public excluded. I'll put that motion. All in favour, please raise your hands. Against?
Motion is carried unanimously.
I didn't put it to debate, but I don't think we needed to. So that concludes our open meeting. I would just like to make the point that, and I think the Deputy Mayor made it very well indeed,